Welcome to This Dumb Week, a weekly live Twitter space hosted by Alex Marinos and yours truly, Dr. Rollergator. Available in podcast form on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, and others. Alex, welcome back. Have you had a sufficiently dumb week?
Well, yeah. I mean, it was pretty bad to start with the whole Fable Mythos saga, but then we had the doctor-driven ultrasound gate, and that really did me in. How about you, Gator?
Well, I guess my week was just fine. I did a little maintenance here with the audio and video, and screwed up the intro, but we got that corrected now. Everything's okay on that end. We'll get to your Mythos Fable thread later in the segments here. We got a whole lot to get through. And
did you get exposed? Did you get exposed to the ultrasound gate?
Okay. We'll briefly cover that. So I'm aware that there was a piece of technology announced that involved we'll just call them extremely tiny nanospeakers that were supposedly arranged in a circular array, like thousands of them packed, that is able to, according to the claims, do a body scan that goes to a fairly high degree of accuracy inside the human body, to be like ultrasound, as you're saying, to be able to do a 3D scan in a way that has never been done before. And it was announced by the same people who are most famously known for having an image generator inside of Discord.
That is correct.
That's okay. Correct. So now, what is the controversy that I might not be fully caught up on?
Oh my God. Okay. So basically, the internet is flooded with doctors saying that this is just tech bros trying to invent imaging, and we all know that more imaging is bad. So this couldn't possibly be useful. It's going to fail. It's going to make everybody sick. This is the summary of the
okay. Now, is it
because they basically have gotten the message. They got the memo about the too many mammographies, but unfortunately they have overgeneralized to more information bad, and are condescending, COVID style condescending everybody on Twitter about how we don't understand.
Is that the actual origin of their complaints, the mammography issue?
I think that's how they're working. Yes, I mean that's the kind of, it's not just a mammography. It's like all sorts of overdiagnoses that lead to false positives, that lead to too many interventions, that lead to bad patient outcomes. It seems that has driven them to support the position that we have not practiced medicine a day in our life, which is definitionally correct. And I don't think anyone.
Whoa! I haven't practiced it. I haven't practiced it with a license. I shouldn't practice.
That's right.
Probably, but that doesn't mean I haven't.
You should. We will not admit to having practiced it anyway.
Yes.
And B, therefore, shut up, nerds, tech bros, something, Elon Musk. I don't know. It gets weird real fast.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's dark, man.
Can you provide? Okay, so let's summarize the situation. So there is a claimed technology, again, that involves extremely tiny and plentiful arrays of speakers.
These are basically existing chips. So somebody has made a tiny chip that operates as an ultrasound, like a solid state ultrasound, I assume. Right. Okay. That's the fundamental technology that then the Midjourney team has taken and built it into a chamber of sorts. But the interesting thing is that you submerge yourself in water to go in that chamber. So it's like much more enjoyable than an MRI. Okay. And it's supposed to be very fast, like a minute, say.
All right.
Something like that.
Okay. All right.
So the premise of Midjourney is, what if we could make, full body imaging fast and cheap? Okay. Both of these things are very important, because this is the thing that destroys the doctor's claims. And at least one of them has admitted that he misunderstood. So basically the point is, they're saying, well, if you get full body scanned, right, we're going to find a bunch of what they call incidentalomas. Okay. That's like, there's clearly a lingo in the field about this, which is like, I guess, like masses that look concerning, but aren't anything. And if we go and do biopsies and stuff, that might hurt you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing that they're not responding to is like, well, what if I just wait a week and then I go and do the same thing again? Since remember, it's cheap and fast and pleasant, not all the opposites of that, which is modern medicine or an MRI. They're not responding to that. They're not processing this because they already know that more tests are bad. So this is another test, and therefore it's bad. So what else do we know? So I've been asking on Twitter, like, at this rate, we need to start asking what other information doctors have been refusing to look at because it might be bad. By the way, some of them have been a little bit more forthcoming, and they're making a slightly more fascinating argument, which is, if I'm exposed to the information that you have these masses in your body that may or may not be malignant and are most likely not, I will then be legally liable for not having done anything about them. And that is no.
Oh, no.
Okay. Right. Which makes me tweet things
I guess this is why you don't ask children about any potential molestation at home, because if you're a mandated reporter and you get to be informed of it, then you have to do something. And that's like, you might have to spend a weekend, filling out forms. And who wants to fill out forms and statements? And
this is why I say we don't want to have been able to have found your tumor, because what if we were and didn't? That will be a real issue for us in court after you die.
Fair enough.
Sometimes, yeah.
I can empathize.
But it's dark, man. I'm having flashbacks of COVID, basically. That's what I'm saying. Have you found
anyone with a seemingly plausible objection in a real sense? And so I'd be glad to also summarize what the issue would be with mammography or the problem with broad spectrum testing. And then go narrow down to the potential issues with this type of idea.
There's a distinct and valid, but probably irrelevant to the conversation, concern about whether this thing is going to do what they claim. Okay, we're not addressing that because they're not. They're not saying if it were good, we would use it. They're saying more tests bad. So it doesn't matter if this is good or not, because, we're starting from the assumption that this thing is good. So that's one sort of thing that doesn't have to be discussed. So the thing is, I guess, there are decent things somebody could say. But unfortunately, the conversation is literally them just repeating over and over again, more tests bad.
So I've only seen a small handful, so maybe 3 example tweets in the last couple days of someone objecting, and so I didn't have a great example set to say that I knew what their argument exactly was. But based off of the way that you're sort of paraphrasing it, is there a situation in which worse image is better? Worse images must be better.
That's the question for me is what is the limiting principle here? Because maybe we should be taking away some of the tests they already have. Mm-hmm. Right? What are the odds that the exact amount of information we have now is the perfect amount of information? More information is not, is dangerous, but less information is also dangerous. And therefore, somehow, by magic, we have arrived at the exactly perfect amount of information.
I could understand an objection that could be based in the use of generative imagery, meaning that there was an attempt to use AI to fill in gaps in what wasn't able to be captured by such an apparatus. And I could understand an objection to the potential dangers of that, because you're
they don't go that far.
You're literally inviting a fabrication of data at that point, in which case that would not be good.
Sure.
But it's if we take the claims at face value, which is that this device is cheap and able to do high fidelity imagery fairly quickly, one might just say, well, if you have to pick between the two, the shitty image or the high quality image, one should probably, in absence some really interesting argument, opt for the higher quality imaging, the more fidelity. I could understand that perhaps there would be a potential need to relearn the art of understanding and making sense of the imaging because you weren't used to having such high fidelity. So you were used to identifying things in the lower quality that you can no longer perfectly identify yourself with the higher quality, and maybe a relearning of the art form of.
Have you seen anybody actually say that though?
I'm making this up at the moment as I go along.
Okay.
Trying to be a reasonable human being, sir. So no, I see.
Yes. No, because that's the thing. Like, you are actually trying. I can see your brain frantically trying to compose an argument here, and are unfortunately doing a way too good a job. Because this is not what they're doing. Well, like, let me read you an interaction that just showed up on my Twitter. Okay,
please do.
I write: the world now needs to urgently be asking, what other valuable and relevant diagnostic information have doctors been rejecting because they don't want to be legally liable for it? And I get this response. They should also be asking why so many tech bros on Twitter don't understand the physics of sound waves. Can you give me any universe in which
I would love to. I would love to.
This is a sequitur to that.
I will say that I don't perfectly study sound waves on a day-to-day basis, and so that if I were to just give you some explanation of how they operate right off the top of my head, there would probably be exceptionally many flaws to what I would be describing because it's not fluent with me, and I haven't done anything truly complicated with any propagation of waves in quite a long time. But
what he's getting at is that there's a whole sub thread here where they're like, well, sound waves can't penetrate bone, and then a bunch of people showing up with videos and studies of how no, actually they are. You just need a lot of compute, and guess what we have right now in our hands? A lot of compute. And then the conversation continues of like, oh, look, the tech bro needed to bring a video to explain. I don't know, man. Like it's dark. No, you think I'm kidding? You think I'm kidding? But I'm not.
I'm not suggesting you're kidding. I just, this might be something that we actually have to go in deeper on, because there is. Okay. Let me give you another potential legitimate avenue of objection. Okay. Let's say that the image quality is what it purports to be and could hypothetically be useful, but our ability to utilize the higher quality imaging to any appreciable degree would not yet be there, and that it would take many years of research on the newer, higher quality imaging to extract the value out of them. Let's start with that premise. Then the low cost nature of this device and the ability to do it quick and easy would encourage people to demand tests, and insurance companies want to have tests in situations where testing is not necessary due to the problem of high false positives that might come as a result. And therefore, you could wind up in a situation where you have more false positives than you would otherwise. That is something I could follow.
Let me read you. I found one for you, right?
All right.
Where this is defending the doctor side. It says, there's no gatekeeping. There's literally no doctors who want to use this tech for themselves or their loved ones. Now, keep in mind, we're talking about a potential technology that is being developed. He already knows what he wants to do. Fine.
Yeah, he just like 2 days announced 2 days ago, and already he knows all doctors' opinions on the matter.
That's fine. It's settled. Settled science. I mean, what do you need more than 24 hours for this?
No, it's the consensus. Anyway, experts agree.
Yeah, continuing. Here's what's going to happen. Now he knows the future too. Normies will get the scan, and it will say things like carcinoma cannot be ruled out, and they'll badger their doctors for more CTs and MRIs, and then they'll say the same, and then they'll get biopsies, all for something that turns out to be benign. Oh, and some of those biopsies will cause pneumothoraxes or perforated colons. What did you think complications meant? Vibes, papers, essays? It's fun to live in Econ 101 world where evil rent seekers are keeping you from your sci-fi tech. Unfortunately, the world is a fantasy. That world is a fantasy, and there are good reasons why we don't scan everything. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is like a principled defense of not knowing shit.
let's get to the first part again. Let's take this slow. I want to absorb this argument here. Go ahead. Can you restart that?
Okay. Yeah, there is no gatekeeping. There's literally no doctors who want to use this tech for themselves or their loved ones.
Okay.
You want me to continue?
Yes, please.
Here's what's going to happen. Normies will get this scan, and it will say things like carcinoma cannot be ruled out. and then they'll badger their doctors for more CTs and MRIs, and they'll say the same, and then they'll get biopsies, all for something that turns out to be benign. He knows this already, by the way. Oh, and some of those biopsies will cause pneumothoraxes or perforated colons. What did you think complications meant? Vibes, papers, essays? It's fun to live in the Econ 101 world. Anyway, so yeah, that's
okay. So everything he's saying is a consequence of this device saying carcinoma cannot be ruled out. That everything is a byproduct of the declaration. Carcinoma cannot be ruled out. So the immediate question is, does he have a device that rules out carcinoma?
Obviously not. That's why the biopsy will follow.
Okay, so what would we be doing instead? Like the question is not knowing what happens from this device. Yeah, not having any information, in which case carcinoma can still not be ruled out, technically.
Correct.
It's just that you're not even considering it.
But do you see what I mean? Like there is no, you're trying to construct a better argument for them. They're literally saying, I don't want to know.
Well,
I do not. Like, do not tell me. Do not show me this. I don't want to know. There isn't a more sophisticated argument behind this. This is like, if I knew, I would have to order a biopsy, and that could kill you. We literally suck at this, guys. Please don't make us do more.
Wow. All right. I think we should put that on the table for next week to look into some of the arguments that are being presented. Perhaps we'll find an article or two in a reputable journal or something that has an objection to whatever the heck. But I mean, listen, even if you don't even use it to do diagnostic tests, perhaps it could be useful if someone has like, you know, a bullet wound or something, and you need to know where the bullet is inside of them.
I don't know how I can tell you this, Gator. There's literally no doctors who want to use this for themselves or their loved ones. Do you not understand this? The guy just did a poll. He called all of them and their loved ones.
Maybe finding out that they got like a tapeworm or something could help too. I don't know. Maybe there's possible uses. I don't.
Dude, do you literally not understand what you're saying?
I don't know.
If we find a tapeworm, we might have to give them ivermectin. And you know that's already horse paste.
You know the legal documentary Legally Blonde?
I know of it. I haven't watched it.
Okay, well, I'm thinking of following this trend and maybe just going and having doctors who are legally blind so that they could have higher abilities to diagnose me based off of particular scans.
According to these people, that's the best radiologist. Like he can literally, he's like in court, he's got the perfect defense. Like,
as long as everybody's being talked down to.
That's right. But that's the thing, really, and this is what's getting me. I think this is what's triggering me. It's the same register that these fucking assholes used to talk to every one of us during COVID.
Yeah.
Where it's like, we know, shut up. There's no studies. You don't have any studies. Oh, what about you just said that no doctors want to do this? Is this where's your study? Shut up. I know. Okay. All right. Fine. Anyway.
Well, as long as we have more things to argue about, I think that everything's going to work out okay. You know, we'd be bored if we didn't have anything to argue about, right? And boredom will kill us all, truly.
It's okay. Part of me hopes these people are replaced by AI. Another part of me worries that they're going to find a way to claw themselves onto being the front end for ChatGPT eventually.
All right. Well, now we're going to test out the rest of my system live here, Alex, on the live video feed that we have here. It tells you who's currently speaking, shows you nice and promptly who it is with their avatars and their Twitter names, etc. But once I move on to a clip, it should switch to the clip and then back once the clip is over. Let's pray that all right, works.
Let's see your beautiful technology working
now. Alex, we got our first story up on the day here that involves a DoorDash robot that found itself in a predicament.
A police SWAT situation in Arizona took a strange turn when a DoorDash delivery robot rolled right into the middle of the operation and reportedly refused to leave. KPNX reports the robot, named Dot, refused commands to scram by Chandler officers dealing with a weapons-related incident and had to be removed by a technician from DoorDash. Now look, seeing robots at situations like these isn't exactly uncommon. Law enforcement agencies regularly depend on remotely operated machines to do the dangerous dirty work in standoffs and other tense scenarios. The difference is those machines are usually invited, whereas unless someone on the SWAT team ordered a pizza, Dot the bot was not.
All right, Alex, that takes us from our first story of the day, the
Beautiful.
DoorDash robot going into
Beautiful.
the SWAT machine here, or not the SWAT machine, the robot machine going into the SWAT team there. But okay, now, Alex, the next set of segments here, the quick stuff, the stuff at the beginning of the episode that is a little bit less significant, we can get through in short order, is a handful of celebrities who have found themselves in court. Now, these are not the A-listers. These are not the most famous of celebrities. They're more on the D and C list than they are the A-list. So the first, we have an actor from Elf, who has found himself in court. The movie Elf, Alex, are you familiar with the movie Elf? The Will Ferrell Christmas movie, Elf?
Oh,
No, Alex.
maybe, perhaps.
Alex, there is something I do every Christmas, okay, on Twitter, which is I do a live tweeting of me watching Elf every year. It is a ritual that I have. It is how I celebrate the holidays. So the fact that you have not seen Elf and you don't really know of Elf is really, really hurtful, Alex. Every year, I live tweet Elf.
You're gonna have to do it on a live stream where I am present, so you make sure I don't miss it next time.
An actor from Elf, a gentleman who was the manager inside of a department store in the movie Elf, has found himself in court.
Faison Love is living a hard life. His royalty checks from Elf are generally over $10,000, but that's what he lives on for the entire year. His car is from 1999, and he's had to live in it for a month at a time. Here he is in court today as he faced charges of contempt. He sat in a wheelchair as he explained to a judge that he has so little income, there's no way to pay child support to a woman who lives in Tampa. The judge sentenced him to time already served, which in this case is 16 days. Now he must file the appropriate paperwork to avoid being charged again. He owes $250,000 in child support payments, but he told the judge that he's gone his entire years without making any income. Entire years. He was even supposed to work on a movie this week, but could not because he was in jail.
And they're painting him as a complete villain, and I don't think that's necessarily the case. I mean, in this situation, he's in a bad situation. He's in a bad spot. I mean, you heard the testimony. He was homeless. He lived in his car. That's how the mighty have fallen, So I think he wants to act. He wants to write. He has contacts in the business, and hopefully he's able to get more gigs.
Lawyer expects him to go back to California to live with his friend who pays all of his bills. Now they're going to have to go through and report all of his income and file the paperwork that a previous attorney apparently neglected. If he does not submit his paperwork, he would face another jail sentence. The hope now is that acting will once again pay the bills for him and his children. And Haley, it was devastating to see him say today that he was shocked that it was getting media coverage, and he was definitely disappointed about all the attention this has gotten.
Now, Alex, $250,000 in back child support is a pretty penny. I don't know how much, how many children he has to support to total up that amount of money, nor how many years are factored in. But that is quite a pretty penny in back child support. And I don't know what movie role he's going to get that's going to be able to, foot that bill pretty quickly for him. Whew.
Yeah, I mean, those kids should have found themselves a better daddy. I don't know how I was gonna pony up that amount.
Now, we could blame Will Ferrell since he's never agreed to do a Elf 2, but since you never saw Elf 1, perhaps if you would start to enjoy that with me on every Christmas, Will Ferrell could be convinced to come into a sequel for that, and we can get this guy a role that he can attend and pay his back child support. Let's try to do a good deed this year. Okay, Alex?
Okay, sir. Let's do it.
All right. Now we got the next celebrity in trouble with the law this week.
Rapper Mystical has been sentenced to 20 years in prison without the possibility of parole on a third-degree rape charge.
A case we were following closely. Louisiana First News reporter Michelle Masson has the latest details from Ascension Parish.
After years of legal proceedings, the case against Louisiana rapper Mystical reaches its conclusion. The 55-year-old New Orleans native, whose real name is Michael Tyler, was sentenced to 20 years in prison.
I think as a celebrity, sometimes trouble finds him.
Prosecutors say Tyler sexually assaulted a woman at his Prairieville home in 2022. During the sentencing hearing, the victim delivered an emotional impact statement. She told the court she was raped and tortured for hours while pleading for her life. She went to the hospital where she was given a rape kit, which showed injuries consistent with her account of what happened. She said the assault continues to impact her physical and mental health 4 years later. Tyler spoke before the court imposed its sentence after hearing the victim speak. He said, "If that's what I did, I deserve every day of this sentence. I'm sorry. I hope you heal." The judge thanked both for addressing the court before handing down the sentence. Tyler will receive credit for time already served. Upon his release from prison, he'll be required to register as a sex offender. This is not his first conviction for a sex crime. Tyler previously pled guilty to similar charges more than 2 decades ago and served 6 years in prison. He has 30 days to appeal Tuesday's sentence. Michelle Masson, Louisiana First News.
And Mr. Tyler was taken into custody following the hearing.
Alex, any thoughts on Mystical being convicted of sexual assault?
I mean, it's good that he will have to register as a sex offender as a 75-year-old when he gets out eventually.
Well,
that's definitely a relief.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, his statement was, "If I did that to you, I'm sorry." You either have to be so blacked out on some sort of narcotic that you legitimately don't remember your actions, or you have to have committed those actions so frequently that you just don't remember that instance. Like, I don't know under what situation you go, "If I did that, wow, man, I was bad. That was bad. My bad, y'all. Like, I apologize. That was uncalled for." Like,
yeah.
Very, very. If I did that, I'm sorry. Like, well, I don't know why you don't know this, but okay, sir.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't know. Like, after you get out of jail for having been put in jail for having done this sort of thing, you'd think that you'd maybe avoid, I don't know, raping people. It's possibly a good course of action, but then who am I to tell Mystical how to live his life?
We don't know anything. Like, you don't understand how higher fidelity images just ruin everything for everyone. We're all just sort of lost when it comes to thinking these things through. Alex, and this is the last article we have on celebrities in trouble with the law this week. The scandalous past of California comedian Carlos Mencia as the DA comes crushing down on him. From the New York Post, a famous comedian facing the weight of Los Angeles prosecutors has a past that is no laughing matter. Carlos Mencia of Mind of Mencia fame from Comedy Central has a troubled history, including within his career as a jokester. Fellow comedians like George Lopez, Ari Shaffir, and Bobby Lee accused him of pilfering jokes from them over the course of his career. The scandal reached a fever pitch when Joe Rogan hopped on stage in the middle of Mencia's set at the Comedy Store in February 2007 to accuse him of being a joke thief. Quote, "If someone steals a riff from a song, that shit's in the news constantly," he said. "Motherfucker steals shit and makes it on HBO. They steal shit and they put it on television." One joke Mencia was accused of stealing was a Shaffir bit where he joked about how then Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger wanted to build a wall between California and Mexico. Shaffir asked the governor who he thinks is going to build the wall. Mencia had a very similar joke with the same punchline, asking who was going to build the wall. He maintained he did nothing wrong. South Park even parodied the scandal, showing Mencia take credit for a joke that wasn't his on a fictional Conan O'Brien television spot. Mencia also faced financial issues in recent years. The Internal Revenue Service put liens on several properties Mencia owned in Douglas County in Oregon for several years of unpaid federal taxes, totaling about $1.2 million. One of the properties was 7,189 square foot home with 8 bedrooms and 7 baths, valued at $1.5 million. Mencia purchased a home in Encino, California in 2008 for close to its asking price of $4.4 million. The property, a walled and gated Mediterranean-style home, has 6 bedrooms and 8 bathrooms across 8,500 square feet. He even had a garage large enough to fit 6 cars. The comedian admitted to committing devious crimes in his teen years. In a 2006 NPR interview, he said he was a drug dealer when he was 19 and robbed someone's house after they didn't pay him the money they owed. Quote, somebody owed me money, so this is how stupid I was. I called him up and I said, I'm coming to your house, and if you don't have my money, you better not be there. And when I got there, the person wasn't there, he said. I broke into their house. I took video equipment, all kinds of stuff, so that I could sell it to make my money back. And on the way home, I realized what I just did was break into somebody's house. My God, what is wrong with me? In addition, he, admits to this, and I don't know if that's there's a statute of limitations, but you should probably not admit to your crimes openly like that as just a general precaution. This is the armchair legal advice from President Dr. Rollergator here, Alex. Yes, $1.2 million in federal income back taxes. Alex, I think that suggests that he had an income stream that was several times higher than that, which is fairly impressive for somebody who nobody even can remember had really a comedy career at this point.
Well, this seems like a problem easily resolved by a fairly small transaction of selling one of the houses to pay the taxes on the others. I don't know,
But then he'd have to pay a tax on selling the house, and then he's just, kicking the can down the road.
That's right.
All right.
Yeah.
This next story.
So is the revelation here that he admitted that he had repossessed the person's property?
The catalyst for the news article is the chart or the prosecution for the unpaid back taxes, but it was just covering some of his greatest hits, I guess, particularly with as being a joke thief. Now, mind you, there is no sort of taxes on any earnings from jokes in general existing. So the amount of laughter that you generate cannot be taxed. That is just a free gift to the world, and that it's untaxable earnings for every one of us when we laugh.
Unfortunately, Mencia is not going to be very productive in that regard. Anyway,
that is correct.
Go on.
Now, this next story, Alex, is not particularly humorous, but it was something that became fairly viral this week. It's very short and very tragic.
An unimaginable scene captured on camera. This woman about to be launched into a bungee jump from the top of a bridge in Brazil. But take a close look. The only thing missing is the rope itself. The staff throwing her off the platform without the safety equipment attached. The woman plunging 130 feet to her death. The workers appearing to only realize after the fact what they've done. You can hear someone shouting in Portuguese, "The rope." Emergency crews were immediately dispatched, but the victim, identified by local media as a 21-year-old student, was declared dead at the scene. The governor's office in Sao Paulo says 3 men were arrested for homicide with eventual intent. A police official saying the team operating on the bridge did not have the authorization to be there. An investigation is now underway. Danielle Hamamjan, NBC News.
Now, Alex, there are probably few jobs where the set of steps are extremely vital, and when you forget the most significant one, in fact, there were in the video that is associated with this story, there are 3 individuals responsible for tossing this woman off the side of the bridge in her supposed bungee incident, not attaching any cords to her. None of them noticing, as they were tossing her off the bridge, that there was no cord. Alex, I'm not a person who has ever gone bungee jumping, but is that not the actual key component to the activity? and that it not being there is pretty important. It is almost like saying, I'm going to be flying a plane today that has no engines. Like,
well, that plane is not going to get off the ground, which is a lot safer than going bungee without a rope.
That is probably fair. Probably fair. Unless you're doing one of those cliff launches in the movie, you know, where you have to actually get away and escape, and you're doing it over the cliff, you know, that type of thing. But
yeah, that is yeah. So if there was ever a definition of like you had one job, I feel like
exactly.
This is it. However, I do think that having 3 people responsible for it does unfortunately create an element of bystander apathy, which is why our friendly internet doctors have objected to any automated system that might inform them of not having attached a rope.
So you're saying each one has a small incentive to abdicate their responsibility and pass it off to the other 2, therefore creating a situation where none of them assumes total responsibility because the other 2 people,
that's right,
by proportion, were technically more responsible for it than they themselves were.
No, I'm saying it gives you a false sense of security, right? Because if you can always rely on the others, then you are more likely to be like, oh yeah, I didn't do it, but it's okay, the others will do it. But you know, for every time that you get away with doing that, there was a small chance that, you know, all 3 of them slip into the same mode at the same time.
Gotcha.
Oh my God. I'm just seeing the video now.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. That's part of what went viral was just how horrifying the disaster itself was not visually terrible. So like you can't necessarily, it's not gruesome or gory, but the visuals of having a ropeless person being just tossed off a bridge like that are pretty impactful and horrifying.
So what is there is a strange thing about, what I heard was homicide with vengeful intent, but what I see on the screen is homicide with eventual intent. And thankfully for me, I don't understand either of these 3.
Yeah, well, it's Brazil, so I don't know what their specific legal system or roles on murder wind up being, and it could be very differently nuanced than here in the States, where we do the first degree, second degree manslaughter stuff, like where we have all these like little ways of breaking up the same activity into different types of charges. I don't know what theirs specifically are, but yeah, just what a terrible scenario. And I'm assuming that. And
also, do I understand that this was like a ghetto bungee jumping operation where these guys were not allowed to be there? They were just they just set up shop. That's what they said.
They said that they did not have permission to, like, they did not have any permits to do it off of this bridge. So whether or not it was like a fully well-established licensed bungee jumping business that did it in an inappropriate place without license, or if it was just a misfit crew of ragtag assembled people thinking, hey, we have a rope and some gear, let's go tie some people to a rope and throw them off a bridge, and then whoops, we forgot the component of the rope. It didn't even seem like the rope was very bungee-like, so I would imagine that they've made a mistake there and just had a hard rope with them. Not particularly elastic.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
Oh my gosh!
But you know what? I will not be scheduling any Brazilian bungee jumping events in my near future, just in case you were concerned. Now, this next story, Alex, is about a month ago, so we're a little bit late on this one. However, it happens to be one of the most cliched stories that I have heard in quite a while. That also is interesting in an inorganic way itself.
Tonight, the downfall of a major organized crime gambling operation. NBC5 investigates how the FBI infiltrated a mob-connected sports betting racket that threatened to maim and kill gamblers who couldn't pay up.
So tonight we just learned that federal authorities used kind of a made-in-Hollywood mole goal to bring down this operation and to end up charging 22 people with gambling and extortion. It's kind of a daring behind-the-scenes story with some new information just uncovered tonight by our investigative reporter Chuck Gowdy, who joins us now with late details. Chuck?
Stephen Allison, that is a photo of the accused gambling boss, James Jimmy the Greek Gerodimos, opening wide for a cash sandwich. U.S. prosecutors say the weight of the evidence is great against restaurateur Gerodimos and 21 other co-conspirators. And since they were charged last month, the NBC Chicago investigative team has worked to find out how such weighty evidence was actually gathered. Tonight, the answer. The feds used an undercover recipe, and the main ingredient was a spy, the FBI planting an undercover employee in the Northwest Indiana restaurants that were headquarters for the alleged gambling enterprise. Paragon Restaurant in Hobart, Indiana, and Gino's Steakhouse here in Merrillville were headquarters of the Gerodimos gambling organization, according to federal law enforcement, with Jimmy the Greek Gerodimos and Dean Jem Gialamas ID'd as the organized criminal bosses. A third restaurant here in the southwest Chicago suburb of Burr Ridge is a named component in the gambling operation, with Capri owner and convicted felon Gigi Ravito among those facing gambling and extortion charges. Now we've learned that a cornerstone of the case is an informant who visited all three restaurants, a spy whom the FBI managed to bake into the Gerodimos organization, someone identified in court records as the UCE, undercover employee. That clandestine employee secretly worked at Gerodimos restaurants on behalf of the FBI for more than 1 year. According to this government court filing, the mole routinely met with James Gerodimos and his associates, observing the structure, organization, procedures, and accomplices involved in Gerodimos' gambling operation.
It's incredibly dangerous. It's just like in the movies. If they discover that you're an undercover operative, your life is on the line because people know that they're going to go to jail.
Former Assistant U.S. Attorney in Chicago, Ron Safer, says evidence gathered firsthand by someone working next to an unsuspecting criminal is invaluable, especially, he says, when they are wearing hidden equipment, as this unnamed FBI operative was, making dozens of hours of surreptitious recordings.
You can cross-examine a witness. You can't cross-examine a tape recorder.
And the recorder was running, according to authorities, when on at least 2 occasions that undercover restaurant employee and his boss, Jimmy the Greek, came here to Capri and Burr Ridge, the home of self-styled chef owner Gigi Ravito, who is charged in the gambling extortion case.
I can't tell you the number of times on a wiretap people say, be careful, our phone might be tapped, but they still talk.
Tonight, the Chicago attorney representing James Jimmy the Greek Gerodimos is laying into the government's use of an undercover employee, Bo Brinley, telling the NBC Chicago investigative team that such tactics, while common, are intended to manipulate and manufacture evidence, as he puts it. Brinley says, quote, it is all fake and staged to try to create crimes that a defendant would not commit on his own and is a corrupt investigative tool. He says Gerodimos intends to be exonerated at trial. We haven't had a case like this in a while.
It's like straight out of a Martin Scorsese movie.
Yep.
And to say that it is like a movie, that's another one you don't usually hear, that it is like a movie.
Exactly.
Now, Alex, I have one correction to make. That prosecutor said that you can't cross-examine a tape recorder. I believe, Alex, if you and I just spent a little bit of time, we could put together a tape recorder that you could cross-examine. We could probably fit a small LLM onto something, Raspberry Pi unit, and integrate it into a tape recorder. So I think we have a DIY
there you
project.
You are headed dangerously to tech bro territory right here. Don't let the Twitter doctors get their hand on you. They'll be really quite upset. Yeah, no, I that definitely checks out. The name checks out. Definitely agree. And almost certainly a Jimmy. Yeah. So.
Where was this organization? Crime organization? Chicago. You know, where you would least expect that type of operation, right? Yeah. Okay.
At least they didn't break into the guy's house to collect the debts. So that's something.
Yes. All right, moving on. Alex, did you happen to catch the UFC at the White House last Sunday? That was starting right as we were ending our show.
No, I'm not a big UFC kind of person, but I heard that it was a good fight. Said people who understand what a good fight is.
Now, do you recall a couple weeks ago I made a special request and I said I didn't know if I had earned enough cachet with the people out there in order to be able to make such a request, but that request I felt was very minimal, and that was just for people to stop trying to kill the president. That was my only little request. It was just a minor ask that people stop trying to kill the president. Well, they did not listen.
Oh, shit.
First, this chilling plot, multiple arrests tonight, where deadly drones planned for the White House. Tonight, the FBI is still calling this an active plot they're investigating right now. They say the plot involved drones with explosives planned for that UFC fight night at the White House. In addition, they say planned snipers and who the FBI says they were allegedly planning to target. Our Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas leading us off tonight.
Tonight, the FBI says the UFC event, which drew thousands to the White House South Lawn to celebrate Trump's 80th birthday, was a target. Authorities say it was a chilling plot, allegedly involving explosive-laden drones and snipers meant to shoot politicians and wealthy people, force a mass evacuation, and spark chaos across the nation's capital. 5 people now under arrest.
It was a serious threat. It was an active plot, and it's ongoing.
19-year-old Tyson Proper from Knox County, Ohio, charged with conspiring against the United States and attempted murder. Authorities say this rifle and tactical gear among multiple weapons seized from his home. FBI Director Kash Patel saying the plot originated from outside the national capital region, with other suspects from California, Nebraska, and Missouri, all charged with conspiracy to commit murder. Authorities say one of them seen here allegedly conducting firearms training. The alleged plot discovered after Proper's mother contacted police just 4 days before the UFC event, noting concern about her son's recent conduct, including firearms purchases and communicating with certain individuals online who express ultra-religious and anti-government sentiments. The charges also lay out anger about the Epstein files and billionaires. And authorities say they discovered a signal group on Proper's cell phone called Hunters, containing detailed instructions for carrying out the attack, including plans to safely escape. These screenshots discussing a drone launch point and sniper's nest.
David, tonight, Vice President Vance says the plot was not that advanced and was broken up before it materialized. But authorities are emphasizing the investigation is ongoing with as many as 23 potential suspects. And David, officials say there are still suspects at large.
It is alarming tonight. Pierre Thomas, thank you.
Now, Alex, if you heard in that story the part of the attempt to now listen, the president was not listed in that specific news article as being a primary target, but one surmises that since the president was in the audience, he was at least possibly considered as a target. So maybe he wasn't the primary target. Maybe it was Joe Rogan that they were really targeting. I don't know. But I would say that he was probably at least at risk if he was not a primary target for such an event. But they were going to use drones, which is an increasingly problematic concern since drones are so ubiquitous. They're everywhere, right? And we're using them in war all the time. Alex, I don't know if you've are concerned about the ability of drones to just be packaged with a little bit of TNT here and blow up something nearby.
I mean, people are very proud of the little Ukrainians being so good with their drones. Surely, they're not going to take offense at a little home usage.
This week, the Ukrainians just used their drones to blow up an oil field in Russia. Is that correct? Is that something that I am? Well,
not an oil field. There's a
refinery. A refinery.
You have accidentally hit a quite a deep hole.
Oh no!
But
oh no! With oil in it? Did the deep hole have oil in it? Am I Jed Clampett? Do I get to move to Beverly Hills?
Yes, but where the oil came from is the interesting part of it. So here's the conspiracy theory I've heard about this. Okay, wait. Let me give you some of the framing first, and then I'll give you the conspiracy theory, which is funny.
All right.
So.
All right.
These attacks on refineries in Russia have been going on for a while. And some people have been saying, like Chris Martenson, for example, has been saying, like, I can't believe, the world is running out of oil due to Hormuz. Why the U.S. is allowing Ukraine to keep hitting Russian refineries and stuff. However, the reports that are coming from the pro-Russian side, let's call it, is that what they're hitting is actually the storage tanks, which are very showy in the sense that, of course, if you set fire to a bunch of oil, it's going to burn and cause a lot of smoke and stuff. But they're also not the.
Are you a chemist? Do you know that for sure? Are you? Do you have the pedigree to talk about what happens if you blow up oil?
We're going to need to bring in a chemical engineer, I think.
That's right. Let me get to the fun part. So the claim, again, I'm just saying what they're claiming. I don't know if even they are chemists. But what they're claiming is that these are fairly easy to repair because it's not actually hitting the refining part of the refinery. They're hitting just the endpoint, if you like. Now, the interesting thing I heard, and it's sourced from some images of some of these drones that didn't end up hitting their targets, is that the drones themselves come with some sort of kerosene mixture that, when burned, causes a ton of smoke. So in a sense, it was like a bit of a Hollywood special effects type thing where the whole aim is to cause a bunch of smoke to come out of some facilities to create the image of like, oh my God, we're really hitting hard. So that was that's the conspiracy side of it.
Okay. All right. Well, if you were concerned about, drones being used in increasing fashion, there is a new company that wants to give us a weapon to help fight it.
Warfare technology is changing and changing fast. And the next line of defense, it's here. Look at this. It's a Texas-based company unveiling a high-tech answer to a modern threat. They call it the Bullfrog. It's built for today's battlefield, and it can be up and running in 24 hours. Now, what is the Bullfrog? It is an AI-powered drone killer. It tracks, it locks, and when it fires, a machine gun takes down the target fast and precise. With threats from the sky, people are wondering, how do we deal with this brand new form of warfare? And the answer is in part going to be answered for us by Fox News correspondent Brooke Taylor, who is live in Austin, Texas with more. Hi, Brooke.
Hi, Will. That's right. Right now, these small, cheap drones, they are proving to be one of the biggest threats we have on the battlefield. They are cheap, they're easy to launch, and they are incredibly hard to stop. So that's where this Austin-based company comes in. They have this new solution, Bullfrog, an AI-powered system designed to take down drones. And get this, it costs just a few bucks per kill. The Bullfrog uses computer vision and AI to track targets in the sky, then takes them out with a mounted machine gun. It can be deployed on autonomous vehicles or even vessels. We sat down with the CEO of Allen Control Systems, who says the system is fast, it's precise, and it's built to handle entire swarms of drones at once.
The cheapest missiles that we have for engaging drones tend to be in the $100,000 range. So that compared to, you're basically one missile per drone, so $100,000 per kill. We're talking about, less than $10 per kill.
How big of a threat is it right now?
I would say it is a tremendous threat right now.
I would argue that every piece of critical infrastructure in the world is at risk from a drone attack without any ability to stop it.
And Will, the CEO right over there, said that there is an urgent need right now for our air defense to have this type of technology, especially if we want to stay competitive in this AI drones arms race. Well,
all right, great stuff. The Bullfrog, really cool. Thank you, Brooke Taylor.
So, Alex, if you attach a gun to something that can spot objects and have the gun target those objects quickly, you can blow them out of the sky. It's a sort of a very clever solution to the problem.
Nobody would have thought of this before, and I mean, it costs a few bullets per hit, really.
Now,
it is.
Now,
all you need is for the drones to come exactly at your AI-powered machine gun range.
I would like to argue that this show is vital U.S. infrastructure, and therefore I would like to see if we can petition to be able to obtain one of these devices so that we can protect where we launch this show from, which is my home, with one of these devices. Is that something that you think that we can put together?
I just want to make sure that it won't hallucinate that you're a drone first.
Okay. I will try to.
That might be.
I will try to see if I can at least get the system that does the identification first. Have it attached without the gun to see if I trigger the positive identification.
That's right. Wait for the first assassination attempt. See if it fires, and then arm it.
Now, Alex, I wonder if in California you might want to, or there's none of these ghost gun bills passing through where you're living, right? You're still over in the.
There are.
Okay. So do you think you might want to make a homemade one of these first before they ban them?
I don't know if I'm allowed. I have to ask my socialist betters to see if they'll let me.
All right. Well, moving along, because we got a couple more stories before we get into the meatier parts of the show here. Cuba pushes through sweeping free market reforms and the biggest economic shift since the revolution. Now, of course, I'm assuming that some of this is coming under pressure because Donnie keeps saying that they're next after his Iran fiasco, where he has both won and lost at the same time in some sort of superposition of states. Cuba pushes through sweeping free market reforms and biggest economic shift since the revolution. Observers on Friday called Cuba's new free market reforms the most sweeping economic overhaul of the island's communist economy since the Cuban Revolution, as the grandson of former President Raul Castro said in an interview that Cuba must seek to move its economy forward. The 176 measures aim to further decentralize Cuba's state-run economy, which has been left gasping by a tightened embargo under President Donald Trump. Under the island's current economic model, the government largely determines what is produced, who produces it, the prices at which goods are sold, and how the country's resources are allocated. The plan includes more space for private businesses, imports and exports without state intermediation, free hiring of personnel, authorization for private banks, and investment by Cubans abroad. It even permits fast food chains to establish themselves on the island. Elements for decades were listed as pillars of the revolutionary economy, such as the state monopoly on foreign trade and the centralization of productive forces, have been dismantled, said Luis Carlos Batista, a Cuban-American political scientist and lawyer who is a doctoral candidate at the University of Salamanca. Cuban leaders like former President Raul Castro, who still wields significant power on the island, have sought to push forward more limited reforms of Cuba's economy in the past, but efforts have run into bureaucratic hurdles. In passing the reform, Cuban authorities cautioned that implementation could be slow and noted measures will not be viable if the U.S. does not lift the energy and financial embargo on the island. Since January, Cuba has been under a harsh energy and financial embargo imposed by the U.S., effectively blocking Cuba off from fuel, its main energy source, and deepening the crisis had already been deteriorating for the past 5 years. Blackouts have lasted up to 20 hours a day and have restricted access to health services, transportation, and education. U.S. President Donald Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio acknowledge that they are maintaining a policy of maximum pressure to change the island's political and economic system, which has endured for 6 decades despite U.S. pressure. They have not ruled out the use of military force. In an interview published Friday, the United Arab Emirates-based The National, Raul Guillermo Rodriguez Castro, grandson of the revolutionary leader, reiterated that Cuba doesn't even slightly represent a threat to the U.S. Rodriguez Castro said in a video interview that Cuba's government was seeking a very Cuban economic model. Our country must seek a path to economic development where we must inevitably diversify our economy, diversify the way we do business, and diversify the way we do investments, he said, but not diversify the way they explain what they're doing. Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel said that he had proposed measures, that the proposed measures were based on an analysis of Vietnamese and Chinese models, communist countries with market economies. What is likely to pose a significant barrier are the U.S. sanctions on Cuba, said Lee Schlenker, a research associate at the Quincy Institute of Washington. With these new measures, along with others that are likely on the table, they will only have a true effect if complemented with the gradual lifting of U.S. prohibitions and sanctions more broadly, he said. Without sanctions being lifted, Schlenker and other analysts said many presented measures will be inapplicable, especially due to the limitations and prohibitions imposed on potential investors, who are penalized in the U.S. financial system if they do business with Cuba. Beyond that, there are a number of other obstacles that could stymie significant reforms, ranging from mistrust from potential investors to what Batista, the Cuban-American analyst, called slow and inefficient bureaucracy. Despite these obstacles, the Cuban government faces a short window for obtaining results, said Paolo Spadoni, associate professor in the Department of Social Sciences at Augusta University in Georgia. If Cuban leaders hope to survive this unprecedented crisis and the pressure from the United States, they must move quickly with the implementation, reform, and the achievement of tangible results, Spadoni said. So, Alex, I don't know if Trump is actually going to move on Cuba. I'm, certainly hoping that we don't really do anything that's too involved in Cuba. I'm not even really particularly hoping that we do some sort of Maduro situation, even though if that were a threat, he would all advise us to.
Don't worry, be happy, la 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 la.
But I, of course, would also like to see, a more liberalization of the Cuban economy, because, how else are we going to be eventually able to have those cigars over here in the stores, just be able to buy them right off the shelf?
Well, there's been a lot of background recently activity between Russia sort of trying to offer a helping hand to Cuba. And then on the other hand, we've had Ratcliffe go over to Havana for, consultations, whatever that means and stuff. So there's been a lot of activity. I'm assuming if they have announced something like this, that this is in direct response to demands that have been put on them by the U.S. to do something like this. This is not organic, decision by the Cuban authorities all of a sudden to liberalize.
I would agree with that premise there. Now, jumping forward, since we still got a lot to cover here, I know that I'm doing this pretty quickly here in a shotgun fashion. Alex, Keir Starmer reportedly considering stepping down as PM and could announce timetable for departure. From Fox News, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is reportedly considering stepping down and could announce a timetable for his departure as early as Monday, according to a report published Saturday. Britain's Observer newspaper reported that Starmer was discussing his future with his wife at his Chequers County residence before making a final decision. The outlet reported that senior Labour Party figures expect a statement addressing his future as early as next week. A government source told Reuters that Starmer remains focused on governing and pointing to previous comments in which he vowed to remain in office. Fox News Digital has reached out to the Prime Minister's office for comment. Pressure on Starmer has been building for months amid growing dissatisfaction with his party and concerns over the government handling of the economy and the cost of living issues. The political threat to Starmer intensified Friday after rival Andy Berman won a seat in Parliament, positioning him to mount a formal leadership challenge. Starmer congratulated Burnham following the victory, writing on X that voters chose Labour's campaign of hope and optimism over division and hate. When asked about Burnham's apparent ambition to replace him, Starmer insisted he intends to remain in office. I've said repeatedly I'm not going to walk away from that, Starmer said. Starmer has led the Labour Party since 2020 and became Prime Minister in 2024. Calls for his resignation intensified last month, with more than 100 Labour lawmakers publicly urging him to step aside or step out a timetable for his departure. Several parliamentary aides also resigned in protest. The internal revolt follows a series of disappointing local elections results for Labour, which lost hundreds of council seats across England, surrendered long-held ground in Wales, and fell behind political rivals in Scotland. Starmer's popularity has also declined amid a persistently high cost of living, sluggish economic growth, and criticism over his acceptance of gifts from wealthy donors. Now, Alex, I believe you pay attention to this situation slightly more than I do, which I do not at all. So I think you might have at least a little bit of stuff that you follow to contribute to the to the story.
Yeah, no. So there's Starmer has been over the gun for a while now. Under the gun. That's what I was looking for. He's been under the gun for a while now.
Outside of the gun.
Yes. Recently, well, not so recently actually. So a big sort of dip in his support, both kind of structural and popularity, has been his handling of the Epstein files. if you will imagine that.
Yeah, I do recall several events. Throwing. I think he had an aide or something that was directly involved with. Was it maybe not an aide, but someone on his council or something who was directly involved with receiving some gifts.
Well, I mean, no, it's not the gifts. I don't remember the guy's name now, man. I'm blanking out. But he was the ambassador to the U.S. that he forced through to be an ambassador of the U.S. He then it came out that he knew very well Mandelson. That's it. Lord Mandelson is the person in we're talking about. So he forced him through because he is kind of like a dark lord of the Labour Party in the past. So he pulled a lot of strings probably to put Keir Starmer in his position, and I guess the trade was that he was to be brought back into government after having been kicked out of government multiple times for various corrupt reasons. But with the release of the Epstein files, we saw him tipping off Epstein on decisions by the EU on what to do with the debt of Greece or something like that during the financial crisis. So he was literally sending him messages of like, I just got out of number 10. Number 10 is the office of the prime minister. And they're going to
10 Downing Street, right? Correct. 10 Downing Street.
That's right. Yes. And they're going to bail out Greece or something like that, right? Which, this is the most actionable information. If you are a guy in finance, right? Like that is the tip, right? So that guy.
One presumes you could make a little bit of money off of that information.
Yeah, kind of a little bit of money on the side. Yeah. So that guy, and Starmer knew that there was severe exposure, forced him through, and then pretended that it wasn't his idea to put in there. It was one of his aides. Then the aide had to quit, who was like his number 2's chief of staff, had to quit, and he quit in a like very passive aggressive kind of way. Long story short, that gutted his structural support within the party. He had to get rid of a lot of the people who were actually backing him to stay in power. So after that, he lost an election very, very badly, because Labour only got, even though Labour won like a ton of seats, they only won them because the Conservatives have completely collapsed, and they kind of slid through on a first past the post kind of situation. So that even though they have like an enormous majority, their vote share is not that high. So then, with some, it only takes a little bit more for their entire electoral position to collapse. I don't know if I'm making sense here. Anyway, long story short, they've had some terrible electoral outcomes. So Labour members or whatever, the officials, the various elected officials from Labour have been pushing him to get the fuck out. And this sort of Andy Burnham has been the leading light. He's a leftoid, so he's not like don't expect any big revelations, but at least he's a little bit more consistent and makes sense and less of just a globalist drone. So, he might be able to help Labour stop the bleeding, at least to the Greens in the UK, because the Green Party in the UK is actually on the upswing.
All right,
so it's bad. It's pretty bad. But no light on the tunnel. I have to mention every time I mention Starmer that his nickname in the UK is Never Hear Keir, because apparently he's constantly on international tours about getting more help to Ukraine while his country is in the brink. So
okay, all right.
That has also not helped.
Okay, excellent. Well, continuing to move forward, thank you for that update, Alex. That helps clarify the situation. You recall a few weeks ago that we discussed the SPLC and the government, the DOJ, going after them for funding neo-Nazi groups that they then also reported on to gain more funding, donations for themselves, correct?
Come on, Gator. Would you prefer that they funded them and not reported them?
I understand that I have to accept certain consequences of if I want certain outcomes, but this enhances the story just a little bit more. It puts a little bit of cherries on top of the sundae, and this is a sundae, but it's a different type of sundae I'm referring to when it comes to the cherries on top. Alex, I'm just going to give you this title here. Tell me what you think of the title. SPLC boss funneled $1.2 million to lover in neo-Nazi group. Pair even had joint bank account. How do you feel about that title?
Well, was it a polycule? Maybe how much love are we talking about here? Was it like a committed relationship?
Well, yeah. A top Southern Poverty Law Center official is accused of helping funnel $1.2 million in donor money to an informant in the National Alliance white supremacist group, who was also allegedly her lover. The Department of Justice filed a superseding indictment against the SPLC, accusing it of funneling donor cash to hate groups they were then telling donors they were fighting. One figure, referred to as Employee 2 in the indictment, is described as a person who would become the director of the SPLC's intelligence project. It also describes how Employee 2 wrote an article based on material stolen from the National Alliance headquarters in 2014 and then paid off an informant to take the blame for the robbery. Based on the details in the June 2nd superseding indictment, Employee 2 is believed to be Heidi Beerick, a 58-year-old fascism expert. She definitely knows her way around him, who was the director of intelligence at the Alabama-based anti-extreme nonprofit between 2012 and 2019. The indictment alleges Beerick was very close to the informant, known only as F9, who infiltrated the neo-Nazi organization National Alliance. Beerick was also in a romantic relationship with F9. During this relationship, Beerick and F9 shared a house and 2 bank accounts, the indictment alleges. Between 2015 and 2021, approximately $140,000 in donors' money flowed from the SPLC operating account and was ultimately deposited in the joint bank accounts held by F9 and Beerick. This amounted to approximately 66% of all money ever deposited into their joint bank accounts. Beerick then used donors' money to pay the couple's personal living expenses. The indictment also claims that while getting paid by the SPLC, the unnamed informant was also raising money for the National Alliance and helping, quote, carry out its extremist activities. The indictment describes how a source broke into National Alliance's headquarters in West Virginia in 2014 and stole approximately 25 boxes of documents, took them over state lines into North Carolina, and copied them before returning the originals. In 2015, Beerick wrote an article allegedly based on the stolen materials for her group's Hate Watch section of its website. That article, Chaos at the Compound, is still available. The indictment then describes how the SPLC tried to cover up who their informant was by paying a second informant, roughly $6,000, to take responsibility for the burglary. Beerick and SPLC did not respond to requests for comments from the Post. I knew it was that fat, ugly hog Heidi Beerick. National Alliance Chairman William White Williams, 78, told the Post from his home in East Tennessee. He also confirmed the details of the indictment match what happened to the group. I think some of those cluckers wanted to get out of the movement and they went to the SPLC for help, but instead of helping them, the SPLC said, why don't you stay and get paid? He added, of the informants. Beerick had joined the SPLC in 1999 and became director of the Intelligence Project in 2012. She left in 2019 as part of the massive shakeup when the top brass departed amid accusations of racism and sexual harassment, with the group mainly being run by white people and black people in lower ranks. Beerick was not publicly implicated in those scandals. Alabama-based SPLC has been charged with wire fraud, bank fraud, and money laundering conspiracy for allegedly engaging in the active promotion of racist groups at the same time the SPLC was denouncing the same groups on its website. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche and FBI Director Kash Patel announced on April 21st. Patel charged that far from using spies to dismantle the hate groups, the SPLC gave them over $4 million to keep promoting their ideologies, thus giving them something to point out and seek donors to fight against. The nonprofit has amassed some $800 million to do so, its publicly released nonprofit accounting shows. By 2013, the National Alliance had effectively ceased to exist. That year, group chairman Eric Gliebe, a former boxer named the Aryan Barbarian, had sent a letter to followers saying the group was ending its membership program that September, writing they were abandoning dues-paying chapters in favor of a supporter-based structure. Membership had collapsed from 1,400 to around 20 in less than a decade. Despite the internal chaos and decline, the following year the SPLC began bolstering the group's public profile, writing nearly a dozen articles about the organization. Tax filings reviewed by the Post showed Beerick earned $190,000 in a year in salary and benefits from the SPLC before her departure. Mystery surrounds the identity of informant F9, who received $1.2 million in total from the SPLC over 20 years, according to the indictment. Property records reviewed by the Post reveal that during the years covered by the indictment, 2010 to 2023, Burek owned a vacation home in IJ, Georgia, an upscale mountain town north Atlanta, in addition to her Montgomery home residence. Williams said he too was stumped by F9's identity. However, he noted the group was somewhat paranoid, and there had been suspicions about various members who could be turncoat or potential informant for any number of other groups or law enforcement. National Alliance was founded by a man named William Pierce in 1974 and had around 2,500 members when he died in 2002. Williams noted speculation about how the only other person who had access to the office from which the sensitive documents were stolen was former National Alliance business manager Robert Damaris. In a biography of Pierce, Damaris, now 79, is described as a quiet, lonely, childish man who ate sugar-frosted flakes alone in his kitchen table each morning and settled with a microwave TV dinner each night. SPLC's Hate Watch profile of Damaris is written with a light hand, noting he is no ideologue and is focused on administrative matters. Another source questioned if the group's former chairman, Gliebe, could have ended up being some kind of informant. His messy and public divorce in 2005 from stripper and ex-Playboy model wife Erica Gliebe had hurled the group into chaos, particularly after she published a since-deleted blog post titled, "I Married a Freak," accusing Gliebe of deviant sexual behavior involving Catholic schoolgirl uniforms as well as regular philandering. Neither Damaris nor Gliebe could be reached for comment. The Post can also reveal the source paid to take the fall for stealing the National Alliance's documents was Randolph Dilloway, referred to as F39 in the indictment, described as a quirky, nearly deaf accountant who bounced around among 6 other hate groups before landing at the National Alliance. Well, I mean, listen, if you're going to hire from the pool, you need a CV that has some sort of experience. You can't just have like someone non-hateful coming in to do your accounting. I mean, what are you going to do?
I mean, these groups are so paranoid, they're constantly worried about being infiltrated. Jesus Christ, man.
So I'm gonna let that article tail off here, Alex. Any thoughts on the love?
All I can say is, Gator, you're just not thinking, in a Econ 101 kind of way.
I know.
If you were given $800 million to handle the problem of a certain type of widget, and then that widget stopped appearing, would you not be concerned with perhaps making sure that the widget is still present somehow?
What would you
do if you were them?
I would certainly, consult an advertising agency and find out how we could perhaps plant some articles that said that the widget problem was actually getting even worse, and that the fact that we hadn't eliminated it completely, even if we had made some headway, was just meant that the job was not finished. And if we stopped now, they would come back twice as bad.
That's right. The only thing stopping it from being a lot worse is the efforts of the organization.
Thank you. Exactly.
That's right.
All right.
And to be completely fair, we don't know if it would have been worse without the SPLC subsidizing them. It could be the Free Needles program of Nazism. You know what I mean?
All right. Now, we got one more story, Alex, before we get into all the meaty subjects, the stuff that's probably going to cause us a bit of conversation back and forth and delving into topics, okay? Now, this, Alex, I didn't do any naughty teachers last week. You might have noticed that. I didn't add them to the list. I've tailed them off after I made my point.
I didn't say anything in the hopes that you would then continue not teachers,
well,
but
no,
I guess
I'm
my
not
luck
putting
has run out.
No, I'm not bringing it back up. I made my point. If you go back for about a month, every single week, I brought in 3 or 4 female teachers who were arrested that week for being inappropriate with their students sexually. But there is one of those cases that I did bring up in those 4 weeks, Alex, whose story keeps getting more interesting and it's getting more viral, meaning she continues to get more coverage each time the weeks go on. Douglas County teacher case, OnlyFans blackmail claims emerge. Newly obtained search warrants in the case against former Douglas County high school teacher Maris Nichols suggest investigators were exploring whether students may have used knowledge of an alleged OnlyFans account to gain leverage over the educator. Nichols, 25, is already accused of having sexual encounters with at least 2 students and sending explicit photos, videos, and messages to several others. But the warrants show investigators were pursuing additional evidence related to an alleged OnlyFans account and claims that some students may have threatened to expose it. One of the more notable revelations in the warrants involves repeated allegations that students were attempting to blackmail Nichols. According to investigators, reports circulated throughout the investigation claiming some of the students involved had threatened to expose Nichols' alleged OnlyFans account in exchange for favorable grades in her class. Detectives included the allegation in multiple search warrant applications while seeking record from the platform. The warrants do not indicate whether investigators were able to verify those claims. However, detectives considered the allegations significant enough to seek extensive records from OnlyFans, including account information, communications, uploaded content, payment records, IP addresses, and creator earnings data. The documents show investigators believed key evidence could be stored across multiple devices and online accounts. Detectives sought access to Nichols' school-issued laptop, records connecting to the alleged OnlyFans account, and surveillance footage from the Ring camera system at a Douglasville address associated with Nichols. Investigators were also attempting to recover information from a cell phone that had previously belonged to Nichols. According to the warrants, the device had been passed to a relative, and detectives were told family members were attempting to retrieve it. Investigators expressed concern that evidence could be destroyed before the phone could be examined. The warrants provided a clear picture of how the investigation expanded beyond the first allegations. Detectives wrote that multiple students reported receiving inappropriate photos, videos, and messages from Nichols. Investigators identified several students in the warrants who allegedly received explicit material or viewed videos that had been shared among students. Fox 5 Atlanta is not revealing the names of the students involved due to their ages. The records also reference allegations involving a second student who claimed to have had a sexual encounter with Nichols at the Douglas County golf course community. By the time the warrants were filed, investigators had identified 6 alleged victims connected to the case. The warrants reveal investigators were pursuing several other leads beyond student interviews and digital evidence. The warrants also show detectives sought certain medical records after learning Nichols had reportedly received treatment at Tanner facilities on at least 2 occasions for behavioral and mental health related issues. Investigators wrote that they wanted to determine whether prescribed medications could have affected memory, judgment, or behavior, or whether those records could be relevant to the case. The warrants also noted that detectives recovered videos allegedly showing Nichols and a student engaged in sexual activity and documented communications through Snapchat that investigators believe are relevant to the case. It is unknown if any of the students or any other adults are facing possible charges because of their involvement in the case. Nichols remained charged with child molestation, grooming of a minor for sexual offenses, improper sexual contact by an employee, and tampering with evidence. Douglas County School Systems have previously said it was cooperating with law enforcement and conducting its own review. Investigators have described the criminal case as active and ongoing. Now, I would imagine that as a general hiring or general maintenance of hiring statuses at a school like that, one might have on their list, does my educator have an OnlyFans? But I guess not. We're just going, oops, she has an OnlyFans and she doesn't want it exposed. Now she's blackmailable.
The way you were saying it sounded like the investigator are like, an OnlyFans, you say, I feel I should require some evidence of this. Do we have any, perhaps, images, any videos, perhaps?
Well, I would just like to point out, Alex, that on several times I have enjoyed being the one to break news on this podcast here, breaking news on this show. And mind you, I'm not the one who discovered this OnlyFans account, which shows you that I did not go seeking one for her. So there you go. There's my proof. All right, Alex. Now we're going to move on to some slightly meatier stuff. We have an Uncle Jeffy update. No, we don't have a lot of Uncle Jeffy stuff, so there's not going to be a theme song for our Uncle Jeffy update. It's just going to be a in and out one little segment. This was from Fox News, Jesse Waters, who I'm not particularly fond of, but that's where the content was. So here's where we got to get that story from.
Fox News Alert, we have new information on Jeffrey Epstein's final days. Senior national correspondent Kevin Corke has the details. Kevin.
Evening, Jesse. The media, of course, spent years trying to tie the president to Jeffrey Epstein. You even heard it this week, claiming they were best friends for years. Only now records actually show that Epstein hated the president, because he turned him into the cops. And the convicted pervy, alleged sex peddler, diddler, well, he came up empty when he went shopping for dirt to save himself. Tonight, we're also learning more about his final days. As you point out, according to the New York Times, if you believe such things, Epstein allegedly tried to commit suicide multiple times before he was eventually found dead. FBI agents said his cell was filled with ropes and sheets and other linens that were not allowed. So how did he get that kind of contraband? Epstein also reportedly made multiple nooses himself. Learned how to do it, I guess. His cellmate, an ex-cop and convicted murderer, said that Epstein repeatedly asked him to make a noose and that Epstein was looking for any way out of his cell possible. In fact, according to his attorneys, there were handwritten notes offering prosecutors alleged dirt on Trump, but he didn't actually have anything, though his lawyers were still trying to cut a deal to reduce his sentence. Vice President J.D. Vance, for one, isn't surprised. He says Epstein always hated Trump.
One of the things you see in the Epstein emails is that Jeffrey Epstein hated Donald Trump, and that Donald Trump literally reported Jeffrey Epstein to the police.
Now, of course, sadly, there are still real victims out there and a whole lot of unanswered questions. Truth is, people could be linked to Epstein that we don't know about. And the Veep says he won't be satisfied until all the bad guys are put behind bars.
I've always been creeped out by this story because Jeffrey Epstein knew a lot of rich and powerful people and seemed to run in these circles while he was doing some very disgusting things with young girls. The story has always creeped me out, but we can't just prosecute people because we think something is wrong. You can only prosecute people if you've got the evidence to prove the wrongdoing.
Now, Alex, I have a question based off of your memory. Anytime you've seen the evidence from Jeffrey Epstein's jail cell, what color was the material that we had here, the sheets and the stuff that he was supposedly wearing, like the type of gown and stuff? What color was all of that?
I don't know. Orange overalls and white sheets.
Orange. Yeah, orange. Okay. Now, these photos that, that only some who are watching the live feed or who will watch the live feed on the video feed on replay will see from that piece, all of these new pictures of rope supposedly found. Everything is now red. Bright red. Now, of course, that could be a miscoloring that they're doing when they're preparing this material for display. Perhaps they've changed the coloring calibration and now the orange is bright red. But I don't know if they have different color days to be festive inside of that prison. Where it's like today's the red day, and then where they change it up. And perhaps we'll find that one day he was trying to commit suicide with green rope. Perhaps on, whenever it's, St.
Patrick's Day.
Thank you. Jeez, my brain broke. St. Patrick's Day to try to be festive with that. But I don't know. It seems a little ridiculous to me that we're still getting updates that like, oh, and by the way, here's photos that we've never seen before. Like, why would we have never seen these photos before? Why would stories of him now and photo evidence supposedly of him having ropes with new additional suicide attempts be coming up?
Here's some evidence that fits all the exact shape of the gaps that our previous evidence left. Isn't it amazing?
Wow. It's
answers.
Thank God we're getting to the bottom of it finally.
Answers the most popular online theories with unnerving precision. It fits like a key in a lock, if you will.
All right. So I don't have much on that. Just that little piece and my little observation. So unless you also caught similar things along the way this week, which I imagine you didn't, because it wasn't that large of a story from what I could tell, like with virality being a concern. So I don't know if it came across. We'll just move on if that's okay.
Yeah, let's keep going.
All right. So Tulsi Gabbard had her last day on Friday. Alex, she is no longer the director of national intelligence. And I guess she decided to go out with her guns blazing.
Before the COVID pandemic, Dr. Fauci, as head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, provided millions in U.S. taxpayer dollars to fund dangerous gain-of-function research on bat coronaviruses at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, work which is now widely viewed as the source of the unintentional lab leak that sparked the pandemic. Now, in support of President Trump's maximum transparency mandate, today, on my final day as Director of National Intelligence, I'm releasing never-before-seen communications and documents that expose exactly how Fauci worked with politicized career leadership in the intelligence community to suppress the truth about his actions, the virus's lab leak origins, and his role in directing U.S. funding for this dangerous research that caused immeasurable harm and countless lost lives. Now, these documents expose Fauci's direct role in influencing and manipulating IC assessments on COVID-19 and how Fauci lied to Congress in 2024 when under oath he denied knowledge of or participation in discussions with intelligence officials about viral research. We also received testimony from multiple intelligence community whistleblowers who reported retaliation for challenging the intelligence community's manipulation of intelligence on the virus's origins, once again revealing a clear pattern of suppressing dissent, silencing critics, and burying the truth. Dr. Fauci's close relationships with the intelligence community enabled him to assume three key roles that shield him from scrutiny. First, Dr. Fauci funded dangerous gain-of-function coronavirus research linked to Big Pharma and their pursuit of universal vaccines worth trillions of dollars. Second, Dr. Fauci was the behind-the-scenes advisor who, alongside his hand-picked so-called experts, pushed the intelligence community to endorse a natural animal origin to hide his dangerous gain-of-function research that he funded using taxpayer dollars, all of this in a deliberate attempt to cover up the truth and shift the blame and attention away from Fauci's own actions. Third, Dr. Fauci became the nation's pandemic pundit, and he publicly pushed lies, disinformation, and censorship using every platform available. Now, according to hundreds of reviewed emails, which are included in this release, the intelligence community almost always incorporated Fauci's recommendations. He promoted a fraudulent paper whose publication he helped prompt as legitimate information for intelligence community consideration. Senior analysts praised Dr. Fauci not as a policymaker, but as what they called an unbiased guide to the real coronavirus experts, while deliberately ignoring experts who might dissent from Fauci's narratives. Now, Fauci didn't stop there. He blatantly lied to Congress under oath during his 2024 testimony to the House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic, denying that he ever spoke to any intelligence agency about COVID. Now, the correspondence I'm releasing today directly contradicts his sworn testimony. Now, we received statements from multiple whistleblowers revealing that the intelligence analysts who dared to challenge Dr. Fauci's COVID origin conclusions faced threats of retaliation, marginalization, and many suffered career setbacks. For example, a contractor was terminated just days after coming forward to ODNI as a whistleblower. Another example, those who advocated for the lab leak hypothesis or expressed dissenting views were reminded by their managers that leadership would determine which analysts would be promoted and which would not. The message was clear: go along or be punished. Senior leaders also sought to undermine whistleblowers by removing anonymity, which is required in the whistleblower process, as they made their complaints, and also insisting that their managers or attorneys be present during ODNI meetings where these whistleblowers were coming forward with their testimony, obviously creating an atmosphere of intimidation. The COVID pandemic caused tremendous hardship and pain for millions of our fellow Americans and countless people around the world. Now, after years of lies and censorship and cover-ups, the American people deserve transparency, truth, and accountability. The tactics that were used to hide the truth are straight from the deep state playbook. Politicized self-serving leaders like Dr. Fauci covered up their own wrongdoing and abuses of power, manipulated intelligence, lied to Congress, and undermined a duly elected president by restricting his access to the vital facts he needed to keep the country safe. It's time you know the truth.
So, Alex, I think that little exit, that swan song, that little exit video that she posted there could be deserving of a goddamn. She really just, tore Fauci apart. Like, she's just like, I don't know if you ever saw the movie. Well, I believe it. No, it wasn't How High. It was a Dave Chappelle movie about smoking pot, but one of the scenes is them quitting a fast food restaurant and like just giving the bird to everybody, like fuck you on their way out, and like that's almost what she did, right. But almost targeted just at Fauci primarily. I mean, people around him too, but like specifically Fauci.
Yeah. Look, the thing is, she is not really telling us a ton of what we need to know here, because ultimately, and unfortunately, the NIH sort of, and NIAID, which is the organization that Fauci used to lead, had been blended into the U.S. intelligence world ever since the anthrax scare, which also they may have caused, but that's a different story. And so, because if you think about it, we haven't really been given a good rationale for why this gain of function research was ongoing, right? We've had a number of, hard to believe sort of rationales provided, like, we wanted to find the next pandemic in order to prevent the next pandemic or whatever. But those really are as stupid as they sound. But the other feature they have is that they are perfectly structured to avoid being accused of violating the bioweapons international conventions, right? So, if you're not doing offensive work on viruses, then you're safe. Now, if you did want to do offensive work, the way you would do it is to come up with a defensive rationale, which is exactly what these people are saying. It's just that the work that they're actually doing makes very little sense in a defensive context. It's barely, you can barely like cite it as such. So, it's all well and good that Tulsi gives us a bunch of documents and then
bear in mind you're the type of person who thinks that higher resolution imaging helps you see better. So that
is right. Yeah, so, I mean, that's just me. Anyway, long story short, I would have liked to hear from the ODNI. Yes, it sucks that Fauci was both the sort of judge, jury, and executioner of his own sentence. It's kind of ridiculous, admittedly. But the real question is, why was Fauci in the room, right? Like, process-wise, how was that even allowed to happen? Because you're always going to have Faucis. The thing with the system is that it's supposed to prevent those people from compromising the work of the intelligence agencies. And given that this didn't happen, the question is, how do you fix the process so it doesn't happen again? But I don't know that we are now, insulated from this repeating just because we dunked on Fauci, who, by the way, has been pardoned. So there's very, very little grounds to bring him back in anyway.
That's right. I did forget that he was pardoned alongside Hunter Biden.
Well, like Tulsi said that he lied in 2024 to Congress, and so you could use that to like bring him in for like violating his oath or whatever. But like, whatever.
Well, funny. there was one aspect that that stood out to me that I find is a little bit unfortunate, and that is she definitively declared that the COVID pandemic started from a lab leak. And to my knowledge, there has never been anything conclusive that really decided one way or another the true origins. Now, I would be perfectly happy with a presentation that discussed how Fauci and company were tipping the scales to public discussions, and how even in the internal intelligence discussions to make sure that nobody was putting sights on the activity they were actually engaged in. I'm perfectly fine with that story being told. I'm a little bit uneasy about slipping in the conclusion that it was a lab leak into there, because now, for all intents and purposes, this is not the first time that they've done that. So I think now we're just going to say, oh, it's a lab leak. Everyone knows conclusively it was a lab leak, and that's not something that I know conclusively. And so it's going to be a thing where it's like, people are going to say, well, no, the government officially says it is. It's like, okay, well, can you explain to me how exactly we know for sure it was a lab leak? I mean, I know we have activity, and I know that there's plenty of reason, because I've always been one saying that it's not unreasonable to suspect that there is activity and to look there to see that perhaps something slipped. I mean, people who are arguing about the zoonotic origin were always pointing to like the Wuhan seafood place or whatever, and it's like, well, yeah, that was like 5 miles away. The people who who worked at the Wuhan lab could go there for lunch. Like, it's really not that difficult.
No, we later found out that there was actually a facility of the Chinese CDC was like right across the street from this.
Okay, yeah. Like, I mean, we're talking about something where you're never going to be able to ascertain the actual moment the first human was infected. Right. So like, yeah. Unless you actually have the report, oh, we were in the lab and the bat bit me. You're not going to have that moment, right? You're not going to have the infection point. You're going to have a downstream effect, probably several individuals. Like, the idea that you're going to go to the wet market and immediately find the animal that had the disease that jumped to the human is preposterous beyond.
Look, the problem
the
is
very
that
first animal to infect a human is going to be where you're looking. No, unlikely.
Look, the problem is, as you're detecting, is that this is thin gruel, right? Like it kind of narrowly focuses all the rage on like one person that your sort of political group has targeted as the worst person in the world, whatever. I mean, I'm no fan of Fauci for sure, but it's so thin, and she is supposed to have had access to so many other things that she could have revealed that aren't just bad Francis Collins and bad Fauci, and she hasn't, right? So I don't know, man. Like, it just lends itself very much to an interpretation that, she's planning to come back to politics at some point later, and she wants this as a notch on her belt to say, hey, I'm the one that gave you all this information that you already had anyway, but whatever. Let's just say that I gave it to you officially. I
would just like to point out there's no commission to give anybody any redress of grievances for Francis Collins' guitar playing and singing.
That is right. That is correct.
And so I think there's a lot of harm that was done by that duo that is, not going to be able to be redressed. But Larry Sanger, the former co-creator of Wikipedia, the former co-founder, however you want to describe it, of Wikipedia, decided that he was going to do something that you sometimes do, Alex, which is take all the documents and throw them into Claude and see what Claude says. So he has a thread that I've attached to the space where he does this, and I'm only going to read some of it because it is pretty long, and I don't want to be here reading Claude's summaries for the rest of the day. So Larry Sanger says, Tulsi Gabbard just released 4 PDFs that she says show Fauci funded the very research that created COVID-19. I fed Claude the 4 PDFs. It uncovered some never yet revealed blockbusters. 1. The IC Inspector General filed a classified whistleblower complaint alleging intelligence contradicted Fauci's testimony, and the DNI's office effectively buried it. The DNI General Counsel Chris Fonzone emailed DNI Avril Haines on August 19, 2021, describing a whistleblower complaint alleging that classified intelligence reporting contradicted Fauci's sworn testimony to Congress that NIH never funded gain-of-function research at WIV, Wuhan Institute of Virology, rather than refer to it to the HHS Inspector General for independent investigation. Fonzone recommended referring it to HHS Secretary Becerra, Fauci's own boss, noting that Becerra had told Haines it was something they've considered and that Fauci had a point he's repeated. The draft letter was revised to route that complaint to Becerra instead of the HHS IG. This previously classified paper trail showing the Biden-era DNI's office treating a formal whistleblower complaint about potential perjury as essentially a bureaucratic matter to be absorbed by the accused's own department. 2, FBI likely gave false information to Congress about a key COVID origins interview. In a classified September 2024 readout of an HPSCI briefing, the ODNI lead briefer flagged what Rep. Wenstrup asked the FBI briefer point blank whether they had interviewed a specific individual about COVID origins. The FBI rep said yep, and that the information informed FBI's assessment. The ODNI briefer's internal email states bluntly that the IC's own records show this individual was not interviewed by the FBI until late June 2021, 3 months after the FBI made its origins call, and that interview with the individual said nothing about the COVID origins. The briefer's conclusion, the FBI has either been withholding information from the rest of the IC or they provided inaccurate information on the record. The briefer did not respond to a follow-up request. So, Larry Sanger seems to think that this is all revelatory information. I haven't actually gone through the PDFs, and I can't be 100% sure that Claude extracted it all because the devil's in the details when you throw things at the LLM. Alex, I don't know if you have personal approaches that make sure that you get more accurate extractions from these sorts of things than others. I tend to resort to using some of the more agentic versions where it's able to extract and parse and do temporary notes before it accumulates these things, as opposed to just throwing it into the chat stream, because the chat stream
into the blender, yeah. So
I don't know which version
it's hard
he did.
to know. Like, it's hard to know. But look, what really worries me is that all of this stuff is pinpointing specific officials that are currently in, are definitely like associated with the Democrats. So, for example, the Javier Becerra, HHS person that is named, I think you just named him.
Yeah.
But I've seen him. He is now running for picking up Gavin Newsom's job in California as governor, right?
Okay.
So it's just all very convenient politically to be throwing these people under the bus. And I'm not saying they didn't do anything wrong; they did a lot wrong. But it's just consider the pool, right? The ocean of information you have available to you as the person who supervises all of the intelligence agencies of the United States, and you're choosing to highlight some very specific narrow acts of malfeasance by specific Democratic officials. Okay, sure. I mean,
to be fair, Alex, if he weren't running for governor, he would still possibly be involved in this, right? In this story, and so
Yes, but he might not be in. Like, what I'm saying is, it does look like the specific things that were released. Like, we don't know what the criterion used was. I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, so I don't know that they said like, oh, this looks bad for Becerra, added to the tally.
Okay. All right. So you're saying
it's
in the process of things to bring to light versus, maybe not emphasize, there could be thumbs on the scale, politically speaking, just because it's how you play the tit for tat game in politics.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's just depressing because there's no depressing. I don't know. I guess I'll live.
Are you depressed,
but
Alex?
I'm not depressed, Gate. I'm just disappointed.
All right. Okay.
But it just feels like, again, if this is Tulsi saying like this is the most impactful stuff I could find in the entire ocean of information I have available, color me skeptical.
All right. Well, we're going to move on to more topics here, Alex, because we still got plenty to go through. Alex, this is a category that I've called okay, sure, whatever in the past. Do you recall what the okay, sure, whatever subject is?
Oh, what was it? No. Give me a refresh.
The okay, sure, whatever segment is where I stuff all of the UAP/UFOs.
Oh, yes.
information.
Please refresh your title to have the initials UAP.
All right, I'll see what I can do.
The Pentagon today released the third batch of declassified files related to unidentified anomalous phenomena, more commonly known as UFOs. The 72 newly released files date from the 1940s to this year and include materials from the FBI, CIA, Department of Defense, and NASA.
More and more of the videos in this release, or this batch of documents and videos, show red orbs than the previous two releases. Another thing that was really striking is more of the videos in this one are taken on iPhones. There's a lot more recent video than we've seen in the previous two, which included a lot more video from U.S. military aircraft. So it's just grainier and darker, whereas you can see here, you can make out colors in some cases. There also includes more eyewitness interviews and testimony that are provided by the CIA and the FBI in these. And what's striking about that is, as opposed to the ones that we've seen in the past releases that include U.S. military documents, they at times they identify the individuals who are giving these testimonies as being highly credible in their testimony. So again, it's very similar to the past releases, but we are seeing nuances and slight differences here that are just interesting to go through.
No, that was actually last week. So this was on the cutting room floor last week. Got moved into this week's segment because there's some interesting things going on, and it still gets titled under okay, sure, whatever, because I'm never 100% sure what I'm going to do with any of this information at all. Even if it wound up being true, I still don't know what I'm going to do with the information. Yes.
You mean you don't know how to apply this to your everyday life, Gator? Are you serious right now?
I do not. It is not currently. It is not.
It does not change how you go about your daily routine.
It might be a lack of imagination or intelligence or creativity on my part that makes me unable or incapable of figuring out how to incorporate this into my daily life and use it for wisdom and guidance to navigate my future paths. But, so you're
saying that better imaging would not be helpful to you?
It would at least reduce. It would at least reduce a little bit of uncertainty. I wouldn't know what to do with my newly established certainty, though. So now,
I'm giving you a terminal diagnosis of aliens. It was the aliens.
Now, in the things that happened last week with this dump, was a gathering of some people in the UAP whistleblower community and some representatives of Congress doing a conference. And this conference had a person named David Grush. Are you familiar with this person? David Grush, Alex. Grush.
Yes.
All right. Well, Wikipedia has his description here as David Grush is a former United States Air Force officer, an intelligence official who has claimed that the U.S. federal government, in collaboration with private aerospace companies, has highly secretive special access programs involved in the recovery and reverse engineering of non-human spacecraft and their dead pilots, and the people have been threatened and killed in order to conceal these programs. He was among the gentlemen, the whistleblowers, so to speak, with these U.S. representatives giving this little public Q&A speech thing.
Afternoon. I'm here today because my leadership on the disclosure issue is part of my continued service to the nation. I took an oath as an Air Force officer swearing allegiance to the principles and the framework of the U.S. Constitution. I took that oath seriously then, and I take that oath seriously now. And if this is one of my final duties of public service, I want it to be this: helping Congress and the president restore lawful accountability over activities and spending that should never have been placed beyond constitutional oversight, and to be transparent with the American people. There are a myriad of issues across multiple cultural, religious, and institutional spectrums. The topics here that we're discussing today go beyond life in the universe. There are serious homeland security and airspace safety issues. There are relevant counterintelligence and technology protection issues that must be taken into consideration. For decades, unknown objects have freely operated in restricted airspace in large metropolitan areas and critical infrastructure, and the agencies responsible for securing the homeland cannot adequately defend against it. This is a serious national security issue. In my official duties, I was exposed to human and signals intelligence information concerning foreign adversary, UAP crash retrieval, exploitation and study efforts, adversary views on U.S. legacy program reverse engineering efforts, and U.S.-held audiovisual information related to crash retrieval matters, such as the recovered vehicles and the associated biological material. One must always be concerned about adversarial disinformation when you're getting foreign intelligence, but I was able to cross-verify this information internally to back up the foreign government assertions. Many of the president's team has been kept in the dark by high-ego, politically appointed actors, both because of incompetence and malicious intent has subverted the president's order on this issue. Furthermore, some of this foreign intelligence has not been provided to Congress despite lawful requests to the Defense Intelligence Agency last summer, and also having formally been published across the IC and analyzed by such analytical centers such as NASIC. These records belong under congressional oversight, and I believe DIA should stop obstructing Chairwoman Luna's task force and provide those documents to Congress and enter it through mandatory declassification review so the American public can see some of the foreign intelligence I had access to. Secrecy around this issue did not appear overnight. Subsequent executive orders, Secretary of Defense memorandums, compartmented security, basically nullified Congress's role with the judicial branch with oversight of this issue. Remember, classification exists to protect the nation. Executive Order 13526 discusses what can and cannot be classified. Embarrassment, hiding funds, criminal activity, and the basic information about scientific information in the universe is unlawful for it to be classified. And this is why whistleblower protections matter. Through my federal litigation ongoing with the Department of War, I learned that the Air Force worked with an external agency to seek an investigation of me for alleged unauthorized disclosures punishable under the Espionage Act after I testified in front of Congress in 2023, discussing the results of my congressionally directed investigation in the support of the first Trump administration. This should concern every member of Congress, regardless of party. To this day, I'm still fighting years of record withholding, administrative obstruction, and a prolonged effort to get a medical military retirement that I still am not in a retired status. This is also a real fraud, waste, and abuse issue. President Vance's task force is sharply focused on the issue of misuse of funds. The same accountability problem applies here. And during my investigation, I found slush funds to the tune of billions of dollars per annum for these activities. We cannot have one standard for the American people and another standard for the deep state that hide behind the veil of secrecy. President Trump has the authority to create an enduring legacy of government transparency, accountability consistent with national security protections. Disclosure should not depend on leaks. It should not depend on the public taking my word for it or anyone else's. American people deserve more than vague denials and selective releases of prior administrations, to include through troubled organizations such as AARO. I applaud the president's efforts and his promise to show true American leadership on this issue of massive worldwide interest, over 1 billion views on the File Drop website. So the time has come to stop asking the public to trust secret conclusions. Instead, provide an honest accounting of what it knows, what it's done, and what has been withheld.
Thank you for watching.
So now, Alex, someone had asked him just after he gave that little speech to talk about what he meant with biologics, and he gave a short answer.
Can you confirm for us how many species? Recent reports have said that there are perhaps 4 different alien species, rays, Nordics. How many species are you aware of?
I certainly don't have the compendium. It's a continuum from corporeal bipedal type life to, what I would consider like sentient plasmoid life. But there are several that the
sentient plasmoid life, Alex. sentient plasmoid life. No.
Oh my God. Can I just say, if these fuckers have been reverse engineering alien craft and the best they can do is the F-35, I mean, fuck me.
Well, now hang on here. So, Chris Cuomo was watching that coverage, and he was airing part of it. That's why the end of the previous clip had Chris Cuomo's voice on it. If you could recognize Chris Cuomo's voice, I'm not saying you, Alex, personally are his biggest fan and that you would recognize his voice like that, but that was Chris Cuomo's voice at the end of the first clip before the question came in, because Chris Cuomo was airing this, and he was watching this where he was asked this question about the non-human biologics that were corporeal, bipedal, and all sorts of fancy terms to just say that they're aliens that look like humans. And so he went out and decided to do a rant outside of his studio.
I'm walking out of my show, and I got to ask you something. What the fuck just happened? David Grush has like a Teflon pedigree. He says he knows that the American government understands that we are not alone. Not that they found this piece of equipment, that they don't understand the technology and they don't know where it came from. He actually said that. I put it at the end of my show because I don't even know what to do with it as a headline. But I do know this. Let's say it's not true, right? I mean, that's the only assumption, is that somehow he's wrong. Even though you can't find anyone who knows him that'll say, yeah, he's nuts. Just leave him alone. He's a great guy. He was a great servant, public servant, but yeah, he's lost. Nobody says that. Nobody. So again, all right, so he's wrong. Don't you think that somebody in the U.S. government, when they know how highly pedigreed he is, would come out? Like if he had said, hey, my great-grandfather was the head of the CIA, we killed Kennedy. You don't think that someone would come out and be like, what is he talking about? That's not true. That never happened. But here they say nothing. It's bizarre. It's so bizarre that this guy says this, nobody can knock his credibility, but we don't know what to do with the information. I put it at the end of my show. The anchor after me is like, yeah, that's Prague, we're going to deal with that later. Later? Alien life? Do I believe it? No, but I can't believe how he's saying this and they're not coming out and countering it either. It's so bizarre. You tell me.
So, Alex, after he posts that, he probably posted on many platforms, but one of which was Twitter/X, and Eric Weinstein then quote tweeted him, and I'm going. See, Alex, I have to draw all this together. Okay, so Eric quote tweeted him and made some comments, which I will play in a moment because I've done a 11 Labs dramatic reenactment of this exchange. Because are you familiar with the person named Mick West, Alex?
Maybe I've heard the name. Is he one of these other researchers of sorts?
He is basically it's probably a hobby. He may have a day job, but let's just call him a professional UFO debunker.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And he's had run-ins with Eric in the past, and he had a run-in with Eric that I've dramatically recreated with 11 Labs, so that I didn't have to read the exchange in its entirety. And I'm going to play that in a moment. But Mick West basically goes around and collects these videos, and often says, "Well, no, it was just bird poop on the lens, or it was a parallax illusion, or something like that," to try to debunk whatever the video is, and. He had a run-in with Eric, and Eric is going to be first on this exchange, quote tweeting Chris Cuomo's reaction that I just played.
I think Chris Cuomo sounds unhinged here. Why? Because he is directly and correctly processing what David Grush is saying. No matter what the resolution is, if you process this correctly, you will sound unstable and unhinged. There is no safe explanation left on the table. Grush is highly credible with an incredibly powerful mind for detail. This defense that Grush is completely dismissible is going to be a very short ride. Assuming this is all a great big psyop, it's still absolutely astounding. Mumbling, "Dude, it's an obvious psyop," doesn't get you out of explaining what this is.
It's not a psyop. It's just a variety of human failings, including yours.
Actually, Mick saying, "I don't know, but this doesn't seem to add up," is just adult behavior, not a personal failing. Don't be a condescending prick.
The human failings here are a desire to assign significant agency to events and a willingness to trust someone who is telling you stories without providing evidence. I agree it doesn't add up. That does not mean Grush is accurate.
So it doesn't add up in a big way. I trust that Grush believes what he is saying. And many other people have said similar, highly concrete things. I have zero hard evidence of what they describe. I assign very high probability that there are unacknowledged special access programs being described. I have no particular belief that they contain aliens or extraterrestrial craft. So, what is my personal failing here? Or do you want to walk that back? Be specific.
That sounds like a quite reasonable assessment. But I think the issue hinges on you saying there's nothing wrong with Grush. He seems to have been convinced about a whole raft of things that should give anyone pause. That is his human failing. You not seeing that as anything wrong is your own. You said something is going on, which I took to imply something really significant. As you've said before, you think either way it's significant. You're just failing to see that Grush might have something wrong with him. He's at the least over-credulous. He's also got the impression that he's in a leadership position, something he's said for a long time, which really doesn't seem to comport with anything. That said, I also would be unsurprised if there were secret SAPs that lacked proper oversight, but I assign a very low probability to them containing evidence of aliens. This originally started with my "it's not a psyop," as you seem to be presenting the situation, as you seem to have done before, as real or psyop. I introduced the third option, a variety of human failings. Essentially, Hanlon's razor, or, as Sir Bernard Ingham once said, many journalists have fallen for the conspiracy theory of government. I do assure you that they would produce more accurate work if they adhered to the cock-up theory.
Well, Alex, do you have any takeaways from their exchange there? Any particular pros and cons of anyone's particular argument?
No, I mean, I generally, my brain opts out of trying to analyze what Eric Weinstein's saying.
Oh.
If you could put it to me in English, perhaps it could.
Well,
it could do it.
So like I'm kind of in between both of them at the moment. Like I'm not. Both of them,
well, because they're both effectively this is the standard. Sorry, I did have a take. Like, okay, the Mick West guy comes across as like very dislikable because he's doing the standard Kavanaugh doctor move, which is like, you have no evidence, and by the way, here's stuff out of my posterior that you have to take as fact, which shows that whatever you think is happening is not happening.
I've invented this explanation that I've seen in other situations that I'm going to ascribe to this situation that I have no specific direct evidence for other than I've seen it in other situations.
Right, but you know, you're an idiot for accepting that this other guy has evidence for the evidence that he doesn't have or whatever. It's like, you know, like there's a saying, whatever, fuck saying. Like there is, to me, a reasonable middle ground that I can see, which is like, who the fuck knows? And that's as far as you can go. And I think people just aren't happy with that. Like, it's extremely unsatisfying So either you're going to pull into the there's nothing to see here, move along side, right? Or to the, something is going terribly wrong side. And when they fight, if for the people who haven't gone on either camp, it's going to sound like, I don't know, a fart chorus.
Well, I have sympathies in both directions, let's say. I have sympathies with
someone like perfect compliment, because I have antipathies in both directions.
So I agree from an aspect with the perspective of Mick West that majority of the things that people are talking about with video evidence, low quality or not, are going to be anomalous, let's call them hallucinatory perspective issues. So we're going to talk a lot about parallax problems. Basically, you can have a camera moving around a particular object and the background will move, and it will make it look like the object that you are pivoting around is actually the thing that's moving across the background. All sorts of things that can cause you to have anomalous imagery that perhaps because you only have one camera angle, ascertaining the three-dimensional location as far as depth goes is extremely difficult and therefore prone to creating situations where you are imagining the three-dimensional spatial relationships incorrectly. Thus, you are judging the speed, you are judging the nimbleness in which something is moving incorrectly. And I am perfectly fine with that at large scale, where people are, casually, believing their eyes, as we tend to do initially, at least. Our body gives us, actual chemical signals that signify importance about what we're seeing before perhaps the illusion is able to reveal itself, where we inspect it and it reveals itself. And I'm perfectly happy accepting that a lot of those are completely simple mirages. But there's a bigger issue here that I think his general demeanor does not highlight if he is as universally accurate in his pessimism, meaning his pessimistic take is effectively going to say that none of these are ever really going to pan out to be something that is, a genuine encounter of something of the nature that we would actually find amazing. But it raises another problem, that some of his explanations are reasonable sounding and simple. Why is it that inside of the chain of the United States government, all of these are being classified as, we don't know what's going on, this is weird? Like, we don't have aviation experts. We don't have video experts. We don't have people who know geometry. Like, what? We don't know this? Like, there's one example of something that he says.
It's definitely not a Sayeb bro, though. That's for sure. So he's got his work cut out for him.
Just it's follow a me out here. Just follow me on here, right? Like I can understand. Okay, so take a pilot who's seeing something on his video system and he's tracing something, and this thing ismoving in ways the pilot cannot explain based off of the visual indicators that he's being given. Now, let's just say that is an illusion.
Sir, aircraft. It's not critical for aircraft to be able to track moving objects around them. So clearly, this is just an instrument being used out of its domain of expertise. That's all.
Well, but let's just say that something, a perfect storm of stuff made a situation where the pilot is observing an object seeming to behave in ways that to him betray all of his expectations, but it winds up just being an accidental illusion. Why is it that after review of these things, where people are writing reports, that people are writing page after page of reporting these incidents, that there isn't someone, let's say, of Mick West's brilliance to be able to go, oh, this is what I think it is, in the same way that Mick West is. Why is it that there's so many of these things piling up that where there isn't a Mick West inside of the government to go, yeah, I solved it out, that this is just an artifact of this lens type being used, and it's refracting the light that's being, done off of here, blah, blah, blah. That's causing this pattern in the light refraction. Like, whatever it is, whatever he wants to say it is, why is it that the government is completely lacking these individuals such that there's a massive amount of these unexplained phenomenon that have explanations that if you were just smart enough, you'd figure it out, according to him? Like, that's a big problem if there's that much of an intelligence lacking in those departments. You don't want to nuke a pigeon, right? You don't want to nuke a pigeon by mistake, Alex.
It's happened several times, sir. It's just classified. You have not been told about the multiple pigeon nuking incidents. They've been reclassified as nuclear tests, which in a sense they were.
Am I wrong here, Alex, that you don't want to nuke a pigeon, and that the fact that all of these things could have these unexplained conclusions in the government, where the pilots themselves are still possibly convinced that they've seen something spooky that has a rational explanation, yet no one's ever given it to them? Isn't that a big problem in and of itself that doesn't just go, oh, I'm going to chalk it up to Hanlon's razor and move on with my day?
I mean, like, you can see how that could go wrong, right? Like, Hanlon's razor, all the things, and like, okay, I don't know. Again, what Grush is saying seems to be ridiculous, especially the what did he say? Conscious plasmids. How do you know they're fucking sentient? How do you fucking know they're sentient, dude? Like,
yes. I'm certainly not siding with
what was
Grush.
The test that was applied to these plasmids, or plasmoids, or whatever he was talking about. I get it, but I don't know, man. Like, it's almost like you know how cops tend to see criminals everywhere in a way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like, you've been exposed to enough,
or an oncologist always is diagnosing cancer is the problem.
Right. Well, I guess if you expose yourself to a ridiculous number of, and I bet you like a lot of them are easily justifiable, right? But I think basically, like, if you commit yourself also against it's a psyop story, which a lot of the skeptical folks tend to lean into, then okay, so then that's a non-alien case, right? The psyop thing. So if you're ruling that one out too, then you are actually on a very fascinating grounds, because as you said, right, you have to account for the bureaucracy giving emergence to these sort of phenomena unwillingly, right, and rather unintentionally.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Which is fascinating by itself. Is another unexplained phenomenon that he could debunk, I suppose.
I mean, listen, these people are in charge of keeping some of the most important secrets in the government, some of the things that are top secret. And if they're just sitting there with a thumb up the ass, unable to identify simple things that someone like Mick West could come in and clarify for them, and they lack this talent through whatever hiring practices or filtration systems they have, that's a problem. Right?
Well, I mean, and just to say, like, I also strongly dislike another thing that he seems to be doing, which is effectively like diagnosing all these people for, well, this guy is like a narcissist or whatever, right? Like, he has an overinflated sense of self-worth or whatever it is that he was attributing. Because, it's two can play at this game, right? Like, somebody else can say, well, no, you have an overwhelming bias for seeking normalcy and, don't want to suffer the cognitive dissonance of the fact that these aliens exist or whatever. And so you are now applying your, multiple choice test of explanations for shit to everything and everyone you see around you in order to keep your model of reality, consistent.
Yeah,
I didn't add anything to the conversation. I'm just doing exactly what he's doing, and we've made no progress, right? Like you can always psychologize everybody because nobody can confirm or disconfirm, diagnosis.
I've mentioned before that twice in my life I've met people who have claimed who have worked with the military. One person worked in the Navy, the other person worked in the Air Force as a cryptographer, and both of those people told me independent stories that were not in, like, from my ascertainment, I did not sense that they were attempting to tell me anything in order to get a rise out of me, and that they were just telling me a story that they told. And the person who worked for the Navy told me of a time that he was introduced to a metallic-like material that was like aluminum, but aluminum foil. But if you were to crinkle it in a way that you would in aluminum foil, you could then flatten it out without any crinkles really easily. And that it was his understanding that this was recovered from such a crash. And then the cryptographer told me that in sort of a secret way that part of the work that he was doing as a cryptographer was decoding communications from extraterrestrial life. Now, I take both of those people as giving me honest reports of what they've seen, but my certainty about extraterrestrial life or our interactions with it did not go to one based off of their reports. Right. Because I wasn't there and I don't know. But I believe these people, and they have never given me an indication in any other parts of my experiences with them that, one, they were bullshitting me for any particular reason, or two, that they were insane. So something explains why they decided to tell me that, and I put that they were trying to bullshit me and get a rise out of me at low likelihood, because they didn't do anything else after telling me, just to check to see if I was affected in any way. They were just telling me a story, and so they would tell me any other. And so when it comes to that, I don't know this Grush guy, and I don't know He's talking about these biological things. One piece of evidence that he's not, let's say, insane is I played for you the majority of his speech, and the majority of his speech did not talk about biologics. It talked about systemic things, about having the ability for the U.S. Government agencies to be able to, have private companies be the shields for their activities, so that you can't actually do FOIA requests on what they're engaged in, and that they can actually own things that cover up the activity that they're engaged in. That sounds like a perfectly reasonable thing for an individual to talk about outside of, goopy aliens with sentient properties, right?
I mean, plasma. You know what? It's worth putting yourself in that situation, right? Or Mick West perhaps putting himself in that situation. If you were somebody in the Air Force that had come into contact with programs that looked roughly like what Grush describes, what would you do? How would you bring this information to the public? Well, you know what I mean?
I think you would go all the way down.
You're in a real pickle.
Well, Mick West would have to go I can't tell anybody this because they're going to look insane. I'm not going to be able to prove it to them. I'm not going to be able to provide them. I'm not going to be able to provide them with the evidence because I don't have it. I've seen it, but I don't have it. I'm not in possession of it.
Right. Exactly. So, and I'm sure a lot of people take that view, or would take that view, I suppose, if we're not assuming the existence of such programs. I don't know, man. To me, it's just what really convinces me against the claims here is that textury-wise, right, I would expect to be seeing stuff come out of the government or linked laboratories or whatever that is very interesting in these regards, and I'm not seeing it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, you can always add more epicycles and say no, they've got connections to Google or whatever, and they planted the transformer discovery in 2017, or okay, fine, but now you're widening the circle to the point where you can assert anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know.
There's so many questions that arise from it. Okay, so if we imagine, let's imagine a couple scenarios here. Let's imagine that what Grush is saying is part true, part false. let's pretend for a moment that an extraterrestrial craft has crashed once in the past at least, and that some sort of creature was retrieved from it of non-Earth origin. Okay?
I mean, by the way,
start with
the way he was phrasing it was like the aliens are like doing routine kamikaze missions. They're like literally all of them like just crashing repeatedly on the planet. But yes, okay, let's say it happened once.
Well, we don't know where they get the ships from. You know, there could be a situation where, like, you know, back in the 80s, you wind up with a Honda that's trying to infiltrate a market, and they're not really good at making the vehicles yet, but they're trying to do it. So they're lower cost, and they might have some mechanical failures, and you know, and
they might have stolen the vehicle from a different civilization, and you don't quite know how the controls work, and before you know it, you're crashing on Earth.
Thank you. The plasmoid. I mean, have you ever tried to navigate a ship as a plasmoid? A sentient plasmoid? Like, you know,
as a plasmoid. That sounds like a tweet. You know, as a plasmoid American.
As a sentient plasmoid, I'd like to see. No, but let's imagine just for a moment that has happened. We can say for sure that in hypothetical, there has been an alien crash. There has been a body retrieved that is non-Earth origin. So that's said and done. Now, let's pretend that we also really didn't want to ever admit to that. What could we do with documents? What could we do with people who have access to certain information that could make sure that nobody ever believes what the fuck they say, because the things that they say are so batshit insane that the evidence required to actually demonstrate them would be insurmountable? Well, it's make up stuff about plasmoids and put that in the documents too.
Right, exactly. Add a ton of noise to the record.
Right. Yeah. What? Like, so now Mick West would have to be forced to discard the entire kit and caboodle, because 1940 he hasn't seen the bipedal humanoid looking specimen from 1940. He hasn't seen it personally, and so he's got documents that look goofy. Do you remember? Okay, let's take an example, a concrete example. Okay, during COVID, there was a person who leaked to, I believe it was Project Veritas at the time.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about, yeah.
Yes, some government authored, it was on government letterhead, official government type documents talking about how COVID was an experiment that was weaponized and escaped from a lab. I'm fudging some of my memory on it because I don't have it hardcore, but the documents existed. So how many people accepted that as evidence who were skeptics of that claim? None. After seeing the document, they just said the guy who wrote it was insane.
Right.
Like, what? So I don't know what evidence means in this circumstance to any of these people, including someone like Mick West. He has to personally see it, I guess, before it would be evidence, because if he sees a document that's going on and on about plasmoids, that's going to sound preposterous to him, because it sounds preposterous to me, and he's going to go, well, this can't be true. I need to see more evidence. I can't just accept this document that David Grush might have seen thousands of times. Right.
I mean, during COVID, effectively, you don't have evidence about whatever medical claim you're talking about. Came down to, you don't have an FDA approved and validated clinical trial costing millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah, obviously I don't, because if I did, I wouldn't. Like, if I had that evidence, the FDA would not have certified my trial, and you would have other problems.
And I guess that's where I side a little bit more, or a little bit with Eric. So like, I'm caught in between both of these, because I have perspectives that share both with both of them, but like, I have a little bit of Eric's side in me, because Eric has, I think, talked to in defense of Eric, he's talked to a large number of these people, similar to the two people I've spoken to in my life, and a lot of these people don't want to be described as insane or seen as insane, whatever they've witnessed or whatever they've read in their capacities. And I think he reacts. I mean, I'm not going to defend Eric's demeanor in majority of the cases, but I think, part of it stems from him being defensive of these people in their honor, basically. And like, how you can't really disparage these people. You have to give them some actual explanation other than you're insane or you're stupid and duped. Like, you know?
Yeah.
So.
I don't know, man. Like it's just really frustrating. And again, the real problem I have is that, oh my God, there's like a pretty reasonably sized raccoon right outside my window looking at me. Oh well.
In a plasmoid form, or?
No plasmoids. No, I think it may be one of those animal shaped aliens.
Okay.
Like, I thought it was a cat, you know, and I was like, oh, you know, a cat, whatever. Okay. And then it turns around and looks at me, and I'm like, oh my God, it's a raccoon. What the fuck? Anyway, yeah. Are we gonna do some mythicizing or
we
no?
will get to we are getting there, sir. I apologize. Right. This stack is thick here because now we get to talk about a secret society. Realize. We get to talk about a secret society.
Oh no. All right, let's do it.
Leak exposes members of Peter Thiel's secret dialogue society. A trove of internal records from a secret society of powerful figures in U.S. politics, finance, and tech was left exposed online, Wired has confirmed, naming participants in its events and revealing sensitive personal details they were assured would stay private. The group, called Dialogue, is a private invitation-only organization co-founded in 2006 by the billionaire tech investor Peter Thiel. It convenes U.S. officials, foreign government figures, and Silicon Valley executives at the off-the-record annual retreats. Dialogue has spent 2 decades declining to disclose its members. A directory in the website's code was first revealed by the Swiss hacktivist Maya Arsene-Crimeau, known for exposing the U.S. government's no-fly list and breaching the surveillance camera company Verkta. Crimeau tells Wired the directory surfaced via an anonymous tip. Wired independently verified its contents. A source separately provided Wired with the registration list for Dialogue's 2026 retreat, which names 222 people and records what the list describes as each registrant's membership status and attendee type, including active member and guest. The retreat is scheduled for August 12 through 16 at a venue near Dublin, Ireland. The same data lays out a program of off-the-record sessions, including Money Does, Buy Happiness, Bring Back Nuclear, Navigating World War III, Battlefield Technologies, and How's Your Sex Life. Other talks include Build a Cult, moderated by the founder of the Christian networking site Pray.com, and Build a Party, run by former White House national security official. Together, alongside the mundane fare of a typical thought leadership conference, the documents show an extraordinary convergence of power. The registration records list General Alexis Grinowich, NATO's Supreme Allied Commander, Europe, and the head of U.S. European Command, who took the post in July 2025 and is recorded on the leak list as having attended dialogue gatherings since 2021. The website directory names sitting Trump administration officials, 2 U.S. senators, 6 members of the PayPal mafia, a former Middle East chief of intelligence, and a sitting ambassador to the United States, along with the founders and directors of many of the country's largest surveillance, data broker, and advertising data companies. Those executives appear side by side with senior U.S. officials overseeing their industries. Aaron Hoffman, Dialogue's chairman, founded the location data broker SafeGraph and the identity resolution firm LiveRamp, 2 of the most important suppliers in the consumer data economy. He appears in the directory alongside Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, whose department writes the rules on financial data, and Senator Ted Cruz, chairman of the Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee, which oversees the Federal Trade Commission and its Data Privacy Authority. Palantir co-founder Joe Lonsdale, whose software runs case management for U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and data fusion for the Pentagon and intelligence community, is listed in the same society as Army Secretary Dan Driscoll and Representative Jim Himes, the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, which oversees agencies Palantir contracts with. None of the individuals named in this story responded to requests for comment. Rafi Grinberg, who lists himself as Dialogue's executive director on his LinkedIn profile and is the author of the self-help book How to Be a Grown-Up, did not respond to requests for comment. The registration record appears to show that not only who belongs to Dialogue, but who attends. Of the 222 people signed up for the 2026 retreat, according to leak records, 87 are marked as first-time attendees. Others list histories sketching back to more than a decade, and a handful of the society's founding 20 years ago. None of the registrants, Grintwick included, used a government email address. All registered with personal and corporate accounts, placing their attendance outside of the email system subject to public record laws. What ties the roster together more than any title or office is a shared preoccupation with artificial intelligence, longevity, and the near future. Asked on a sign-up form to predict the future, registrants returned again and again to the same theme, that AI will reorder work, war, education, and belief within a few years. Several foresee mass labor displacement and a swing back towards unions and government programs. Others predict an AI winter, domestic terrorism targeting data centers, criminal defendants choosing AI lawyers over public defenders, or religious revival provoked by disruption. Societal degeneration, predicted one person, will continue to accelerate. Members also list talents like funhouse construction, accent imitation, backcountry skiing, urban exploration, and meditative and psychedelic inquiry into the nature of reality. One offers compassion and existential dread. Another dinner parties, keeping secrets, remembering birthdays. Their book recommendations skew towards canonical and optimization-minded. Marcus Aurelius and Milan Kundera, alongside Annie Duke's Thinking in Bets, Peter Attia's Outlive, and from at least one attendee, Thiel's own 0 to 1. Dialogue also plays matchmaker. Its participant forum asks registrants whether they are looking for love and offers to include single man, single woman, or other respondents in future matchmaking. A separate site, dating.dialogue.org, hosts an app pitched as meaningful connections for the exceptional people. The forum also gathers sensitive answers, including each registrant's political leaning, which Dialogue promises will not be shared in the app or with other participants ever. That data and the matchmaking responses were exposed in the leak. The records sit in Airtable, a commercial database. For each participant, Dialogue logs a membership status. What? I've never used Airtable. Is that something that?
It all makes sense now.
Make it cohere for me here. What's
No, it's fine. It is a pretty low code sort of database environment. So I guess.
Okay, like is it just going to be like a JSON sort of deal?
It's like an Excel sheet and wrap sorting and filtering and forms and whatever around it and make it into a quasi Microsoft Access type thingy.
Okay, all right. For each participant,
you can imagine the admin person that put this together. They were really proud of themselves and they forgot to put a password on it.
Peter Thiel's nephew or something.
Yes,
made the website. For each participant, Dialogue logs a membership status. Every retreat the person has attended, a biography, a home city, and a private access token. Wired is not publishing the tokens, which function as login credentials, or the personalized account links that contain them. The leaked registration list also names senior figures absent from the public directory of 113. Randy Krosner, former governor of the Federal Reserve who now serves at the Bank of England's Financial Policy Committee, Hallie Hoffman, a former general counsel and acting chief of staff of the Drug Enforcement Administration, Jonathan Greenblatt, the chief executive of the Anti-Defamation League, Peter Gottler, the president of the Cato Institute, Ryan Stowers, the executive director of the Charles Koch Foundation, and Roger Myerson, a Nobel laureate economist at the University of Chicago. It also lists a cluster of Google and Google DeepMind executives, among them Tom Liu, who leads global affairs for the company's Frontier AI division, and one working journalist, Saud Mechanet, a former national security correspondent for the Washington Post. She is listed as running an event called Ulysses Book Club. The rest of the membership spans hedge fund and private equity billionaires, current and former foreign officials, network television actors, best-selling authors, and religious leaders. One of the several internal documents Dialogue left exposed on the same online database that held its registration records is a guide for event moderators, urging them to remind participants that everything is off the record and that comments should be concise and non-obvious. It also coaches them to model brief introductions to avoid status signaling in a room full of senators, dignitaries, and tycoons. The discipline imposed by the group did not extend to the website. The directory was embedded in the code of dialogue.org, a near-empty page, and was served to any visitor who viewed the page's source. A separate Dialogue page at app.dialogue.org presents a sign-in screen for Dialogue Global 2026 outside Dublin. The page invites any visitor to sign in by email or Google account and presents no terms of service, no notice that the application is restricted to members, and no indication that an invitation is required. Dialogue has operated with little public footprint since its founding. It holds at least one retreat a year with assigned seating, moderated sessions, and a rule that nothing said is for attribution. Past gatherings have been held at the Ritz-Carlton Dove Mountain in Arizona and the San Clemente Palace in Venice, Italy, according to Axios, which first reported the group's plans for a campus in the Washington, D.C. area. It has been linked to tech industry version of Bilderberg, the off-the-record gathering of Western political business elites. Accounts described retreats of around 100 participants. The 2026 registration list, reviewed by Wired, names 222. Public glimpses are rare. The statistician Andrew Gelman published one of Dialogue's invitations to his blog in 2022, describing its format and the registration fee of more than $16,000. The 2014 retreat drew renewed attention this year when an invitation forwarded to the financier Jeffrey Epstein surfaced in the U.S. Justice Department's release of the Epstein files. A Jeff Epstein appears on an attached list of past participants, but the person is actually the former CFO of Oracle, not the deceased sex trafficker. Now, Alex, this had additional fallout, this article. This caused a bit of a controversy, requiring several people to respond. One of which being Joseph Gordon-Levitt, the actor who was in Third Rock from the Sun, almost most famously.
We discussed them before here, if you remember.
Yes, because he's on a anti-AI crusade, correct?
He's and married to a former OpenAI board member.
Okay. And the other is Ezra Klein, who had to do a defense of his attendance to this Dialogue thing. But the third person who had to respond to it all was Eric Weinstein.
Jesus fucking Christ, man.
Now, I'm going to skip for time Joseph Gordon-Levitt's this is totally innocent and don't you come at me for going to it. But Ezra Klein put a tweet out, a long tweet out that I'll share to here, and I'll read out here. Go ahead.
I read it, and as much as I dislike Klein, it sounded pretty reasonable.
Oh, I hope my reading of the Wired article didn't take a side, or my tone didn't take a side, because I'm imagining.
No. I mean, the Wired article definitely took a side. I don't think your reading of it did.
Enough people have asked me about the Peter Thiel Dialogue story. I think it's worth saying what it is, or at least what I saw it to be. So, Dialogue is a conference. I went once in 2018 and once in 2022. No one ever asked me to keep it or my presence secret. My understanding was Thiel was one of the founders, but is no longer involved by the time I went. I never saw or talked to him in connection with Dialogue. Nor did I see the other names I've heard mentioned, like Ted Cruz or Elon Musk or Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Or Jared Kushner. Dialogue was not sold to me as a bunch of big names, which is part of why I went. I don't need to go to a conference to hear what Ted Cruz thinks. You could be a Dialogue member, but I wasn't. I don't think joining got you much except guaranteed invitation to future dialogues. There were occasional dinners and webinars, but I never went to one. I would not have described it as a secret or a society. The panels were largely self-organized, so people would propose panels and hold them. I went to one on being a working parent, and another on whether crypto had any real use cases, and another on how to accelerate scientific breakthroughs. You'd usually have 8 or 10 people in a room. It was all very TED Talk adjacent. In 2018, I found it very optimistic with an idealistic hackerish vibe. In 2022, I found the conversation a vibe more curdled and resentful. I didn't enjoy it, and I didn't go back. That did prove a pretty good signal of where text politics were going, though. Maybe I should have paid more attention. That said, Dialogue was a pretty ideologically diverse crowd. I met some people there who were extremely far left and far right. I met some real eccentrics and weirdos. I appreciated that about it. I'm a journalist. I go to lots of things in hopes of getting to know people, hearing new ideas, finding podcast guests, etc. Being at something does not mean I endorse it or everyone at it or everyone who organized or founded it. I try to go to things where I don't share the politics and perspectives of the crowd for obvious reasons. I'm surprised by how credulous some people have been on this story. You have to believe some weird things about the world to believe Julian Castro and Peter Thiel are somehow engaged in a common project. Secret societies, I imagine, need a lot of trust to function, but the people being named here do not trust each other, do not have aligned agendas. So that's what I saw at Dialogue. I'll just end by saying it's a weird experience to have a conference you haven't thought about for years become the center of a new conspiracy theory. Alex, this comes to a point Or I don't know if I've ever told you that one of my long-term goals is to become the center of some nutcase's conspiracy theory, where, you know, hopefully he generates a conspiracy flowchart that all points to me at the center. And I've tried to do this by accumulating, you know, large follows on Twitter, you know, Barry Weiss follows me on Twitter. Megyn Kelly follows me on Twitter. All of these important names. Eric Weinstein being one who does not follow me, ruining part of my attempt at becoming the center of all of at someone's conspiracy theory thing. But now I'm thinking, Alex, what if I create a secret society that is so secret that even the members of it do not know that they are part of it? I can state that I'm going to hold these gatherings with these attendees at very, very ritzy and fancy places who will have no record of anyone holding such an event or the attendance, making it even more super secret. To be able to,
you can then appear at the. You can actually go to these places where those people happen to be because they're on holidays or whatever, creating a paper trail of, like, you know, Gordon Levitt claims that he's never been to these events, but the paper trail shows that he was at this hotel at that time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know, man. Like, to me, the whole thing hangs off of this characterization as a secret society, and I feel like if there isn't, like, I don't know, some like induction and some secret knowledge or like something, I don't know, some crimes to talk about, like, this is all wired sort of frothing at the mouth about, I don't know, like some organization not making its attendee list public because apparently we're owed that.
Think of the upside, though, Alex. Think of the upside. Okay? Wired just gave us all permission to accept the idea that conspiracies can exist at 222 members wide. Extremely important, secretive, multi-angled conspiracies, meaning this is not just one thing that they are conspiring on. This is all of them conspiring on everything, basically. And 222 of them.
And by the way, how dare they not use their government emails for this so that we can FOIA
them? They're doing it unofficially, Alex.
They're doing it in their personal capacity? What?
So Eric Weinstein responded to Ezra Klein saying, "This is pathetic and weak." He's not responding to Ezra. He's responding to Ezra, responding to the Wired article. So he's responding to the Wired article. "This is pathetic and weak. I've been to Dialogue multiple times. Peter Thiel invites me. He remains a close friend. I enjoyed Dialogue just as I've enjoyed many other private gatherings. What I saw at Dialogue was not immoral, illegal, and is no one's business. I'd go again. Clear? The internet types need a hobby. Unless something is happening at Dialogue that I didn't see, this is as close to a pure moral panic. One more internet story involuntarily involving real people. I have run session tables at Dialogue. This is pathetic. Feel free to unfollow." Now, I do want to give Eric a little bit of shit here.
Feel free to follow me.
I do want to give Eric a little bit of shit here, in that he does sometimes speculate about things being suspicious or weird with about as much going on as what was in the Dialogue article. Yes. So, you know, I mean, he's got a conspiracy that the entire like academic apparatus is trying to stop his geometric unity project from going forward outside of him just not sufficiently writing it down.
That it hasn't gone anywhere, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. It's beyond me. All right, yeah. Alex. Now we're moving on. Yeah. No, we had to get through the Dialogue,
the Weinstein
Society. There's no more Eric Weinstein on the list here, Alex. So I'm going to skip over.
And by the way, the name cannot be more like, they call it Dialogue. Oh no, they're talking to each other. Stop them before this gets worse.
That is what a conspiracy is. It's a dialogue among multiple people. It's a polylogue. All right.
Imagine the STDs.
All right, Alex. In order to we're going to get to your Mythos thread in detail. So I'm going to jump to Traces of AI Dystopia. I'm going to give the headlines real quick of what I had under a generic text section here. I won't go into the articles, though. We'll maybe cover them next week. The FCC wants to kill burner phones by forcing telecoms to all get customer IDs. DOJ seeks to halt air pollution lawsuit against XAI data center. Alex, I don't know if you've heard of this. This is filed by the NAACP for some reason to stop XAI from building a data center. Man,
the racism must be getting really thin on the ground.
Well, yeah. So, and then the last one is OpenAI spending hit $34 billion last year ahead of planned IPO. So those are the articles I'm going to skip over this week in order to get to Traces of AI Dystopia. We're going to do two things before we get to yours. I'm going to reorder this real quick here. Two things before we get to your tweet thread on Anthropic, because I want to get one thing that made me tickle. This tickles me pink. Alex, as you know, one of my long-standing topics in the Traces of AI Dystopia segment are the lawyers who are using the LLMs to jam out their papers and throw in a whole bunch of hallucinated cases and details. And this was a nice little short compendium of lawyers getting reamed by the judges for having done so.
You wrote this.
Yes, so if
you wrote this,
I wrote this.
You're responsible for it.
I'm responsible for this and the reply.
You're citing principles that don't exist. This is a wholesale creation of cases. And I'm concerned that you're citing cases that don't exist. That's a big concern. This is not me pulling one case out of a string site.
Right.
Okay? I understand you might not, you should be, you might not have read every single case in a string site. These are, you're suggesting the Court of Appeals said things they didn't say.
Okay, if I again, I mean, I would have to review my papers. I think with Zhu, I think that was an appellate decision that actually wasn't a Court of Appeals decision that I was mistaken about. Again, like I said, I was really focused on the cases.
Some of the fabricated quotations used to support your primary argument are contrary to actual law. Actually contrary to what the law states on your primary arguments. These are not minor side issues. These are issues that you offer, that you put before this court to support your primary arguments. It is concerning, and we're bringing this to your attention so that you may explain, if possible, how this occurred.
The only thing I could think of is just me over-relying on other briefs. And
you saw that these cases were, when you read your adversary's brief, do you actually check the cases?
Yes, Your Honor.
How come you didn't bring it to our attention?
So with this particular scenario, I was more focused on the specifics concerning.
He referenced Court of Appeals standard that doesn't exist.
With that principle of law, that's
Counsel, I'm going to give you a chance to make your argument.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to give you every opportunity to make your argument. But I'm befuddled. I honestly am. I'm absolutely, and I'm not here to, lawyers make mistakes. It's not an easy profession. I don't want to sit here beating up on lawyers, but we rely on the bar so much in what we do. So the first thing that I did, I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but after seeing what he wrote, when I went to your papers, I expected to see something referencing. Not just, it wasn't one case, counsel, it was several cases. And you didn't see fit to bring it to our attention either. It's just striking to me. I'll let you make your argument.
So I love that so much, watching both of those attorneys get, because I don't know if you caught that, Alex, the second attorney getting reamed out was opposition counsel who failed to pick up on all of the invented cases by their opposition, meaning that they themselves did not read the arguments that were being made. They most likely use the LLM to read and reply themselves to. So it's beautiful.
I think people have no idea how much LLM is being used by lawyers. They have not the slightest clue how like, and frankly, probably 99.9% of the use is valid and productive because that's what their work is. Mm-hmm. Right. And frankly, the hallucination rates are going down. And if you know what you're doing, they can go down to effectively zero. But yeah, I treat all of this as like, A, okay, fine, it's entertaining, but B, it is a peek into the world of lawyering that shows us how much of their work is like mechanical in nature. Let me put it that way.
Well, reading and knowing your arguments and your source for those arguments is probably not as mechanical. It might be looking them up could be made mechanical, but reading them probably not.
Yep.
All right.
It was fun. So frankly, I don't enjoy that kind of content myself. I get like secondhand embarrassment pretty badly. But yeah, this was
all right.
Yeah, this was very
I experience more Schadenfreude than you do, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Alex, this next thing before we get to Anthropic here is something from The Economist that this came in right at the wire. Okay, so 30 minutes before I was preparing the show, this came in, and I'm like, oh, I have to include this. And I've only reviewed the first half of it because I got so angry at this Max Tegmark and his initial statements, and I want to see if you get as angry at him as I do, just from the outset here.
I'm angry at Tegmark.
The AI industry today is the only.
You're angry at Tegmark?
In principle.
In principle. All right.
He is the beneficiary of that $600 million donation by Vitalik Buterin that I was talking to you about.
Okay. All right. Well, from Wikipedia, Max Tegmark is a Swedish-American physicist, machine learning researcher, and author. He's a professor of physics at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He co-founded and leads the Future of Life Institute, a nonprofit focused on reducing global catastrophic risks from advanced technologies. And here's The Economist with him.
The AI industry today is the only industry in America that has less regulations than sandwich shops, which I find just very bizarre. You know, if I want to open a sandwich shop and you come in, the health inspector, and you say, hey Max, you know, I found 14 rats in your kitchen. You can't sell any sandwiches. And I tell you, you know, actually, don't tell anyone, but I'm not going to sell sandwiches. I'm just gonna release an AI girlfriend product for 11-year-olds and this other AI that might teach terrorists to make bioweapons. And also, I'm going to release this thing called superintelligence tonight that I don't know how to control. You, from the government, would be forced to tell me, you know, that's actually all legal. So go ahead with that, but just promise me no sandwiches, all right?
I do believe, Alex, that the health inspector concerned about the rat infestation would not have any opinions on those AI products. I can fucking bet.
Yeah, he's made some pretty awful arguments in his time, and I'm guessing he's not improving at it.
The thing is,
he's really anyway. Go ahead.
No. What is that? No, tell me.
No, he's the Pope of the safetyists. Like, I mean, one of them anyway. And for, you know, a physicist that is, you know, holding a position at MIT, you'd think that he would be an intelligent person. But frankly, I mean, the stuff he comes up with, if you hear him argue his case,
like
it's just poor. It's just very poor. I don't know.
A lot of what you're saying is familiar to me because I've heard the heads of AI labs saying the same thing. Do you believe that they believe what they're saying? Because they tell me that they also think you should plan for safety, you shouldn't go full speed ahead.
Deep down, I believe we're all well-meaning people, you know. But this, as the saying goes, show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome. There used to be a product called some soothing syrup in America, which was sold the parents so they could get their kids to sleep better. And it contained so much opioids that a lot of kids never woke up after that, you know. And in Germany, they sold this product called thalidomide that causes thousands of German babies to be born without arms or legs. You know, was that because the CEOs of those companies were ill-meaning? I don't think so. But there was just a lot of commercial pressure to get the products out fast, to not get scooped by the competition. And as a result, there was enough anger and political will to create the Food and Drug Administration and the EMA in Europe and so on to change the incentives. And now the same kind of CEOs, even though they're under the same shareholder pressure, do good things, you know, rather than bad things. So I think the greatest blame doesn't fall on CEOs. I think it falls on our government for not treating AI like any other powerful industry with binding safety standards. The one thing I do blame the CEOs for, actually, is rather that they haven't told their lobbyists to go push for common sense guardrails and safeguards, because that they could totally do.
They haven't, he says, even though I think if you would have watched some of the news this last week, he would be hard fought to say that that's some of
Look, I mean, the man is managing to say that somehow the problem was the lack of FDA, and as soon as FDA was invented, we no longer have medical, drugs issued that kill people. So
never, no. At least not with perverse incentive structures.
No. And by the way, show me the incentives of a person running a $600 million AI risk charity. What are his incentives? Or what are the incentives of regulators? Because apparently they are coming out of above us and just rule us with just perfect, benevolence. Apparently, like what?
I'm not going to say it is as bad as the Sam Harris peanut butter analogy, but his sandwich shop analogy irks me almost the same way. Like it hits that spot of me of like, that is the dumbest analogy I've ever heard. Like, listen, those AI companies have thousands of regulations that they have to follow. They just don't have any brand new ones invented for your novel scenario. They have the same ones as the sandwich shop. They can't sell sandwiches with the rat infested. Like, they have those regulations. They're just not engaged in that activity.
Oh my God!
Like,
I don't know. I don't know what to say to this, people. Like, it's anyway. I think if we get to the next one, to me, like that is the forefront of what these people should be talking about, and they are engaged in like some childish hypothetical making instead, which is like just absurd.
Now, Alex, would you like to take over reading your thread? I have your thread here. I can read it, but it is your thread procuring the timeline of events from what we discussed last week, which was Anthropic having the kibosh put on them for a large part of their ability to actually have their Fable/Mythos model, which was their most advanced model that they sort of went around declaring was equal to a nuclear weapon in its lethality. And begged the government to regulate them and have the power to say models were not allowed to be put on the market. So then the government said, okay, you're not allowed to put your allowed to put your model on the market with an asterisk on it that your thread explains. Would you like to take over?
Would
you like me to read your thread?
I don't know if I should read the whole thread. But I guess the thing to like what I did is I tried to create a timeline of events that led to the banning of Fable 5. And it was interesting to me because then I started picking up a number of elements that were not like well connected narratively, right? Like, and then I started remembering other bits and pieces of information I'd seen here and there, and I kept telling Opus, ironically, to start pulling those into the timeline, and then those led me to have other questions, and I basically, I kind of worked myself into completely reversing my understanding of the situation, right? Like I kind of dug up this thread before. This thread was written before I found that last one that I used as my intro, which was that Senator Warner came out and said that maybe that's a good place to start, right? That's the start. I have it at the start of the thread, and it is shocking enough to work well as a good sort of intro to the topic, which is this is from a Wired Economist article. So it says, on June 11th, Mark Warner, the vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, so not a small fry, said that General Joshua Rudd, who leads the National Security Agency and the Pentagon Cyber Command, had told him that Mythos broke into almost all of our classified systems, not in weeks, but in hours. Okay, that's the contested quote. So basically, I had been picking up on a thread that the NSA had been using Claude Mythos. We then, I think, mentioned even last week that there was a story saying that there were several engineers from Anthropic embedded in NSA to use Mythos for offensive cyber operations, which means like hacking the networks of other countries like China or Iran. And then later we found out that Mythos Preview. This is a very delicate distinction that is extremely important in this situation. So Mythos Preview is still available to over 200 companies that are part of Project Glasswing, which was the advanced access program for Anthropic. Okay, Mythos Preview is not Mythos 5 and Fable 5, which are the models to which the export control order applies to. Do you see what's happening here? So the export order is only for Mythos 5 and Fable 5. Mythos Preview, being a different model, quote unquote, is continuing to be used both offensively and defensively by the NSA and select US companies to do whatever it is they are doing. Mostly, I assume, continue building up defenses to their own systems and attacking the occasional opponent.
So it's like banning the adult formula of a drug, but leaving the child version. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. And in addition, there was this other story that stood out to me, which was that the White House had objected to Anthropic expanding its access list for Mythos from 50 to 120 companies. So now it's 200, right? But earlier, the White House was pushing back because, and this is the craziest part of it all, they were worried that adding more companies to help them defend their systems against attacks using Mythos would take away from the GPU capacity the government had. And what was the government doing with Mythos? Using it to attack other countries. Right? So while we're all talking here about how like, oh my God, I can't believe they're like, taking away this model and this is like regulation of AI and whatever, what you have is an operation by the NSA to hack into like everybody else they can hack into, maybe help some of their own companies get ready for being attacked with the same level of system. And what else was there? Oh, yes. And in the meantime, we have the vice president freaking out because of what he saw, I guess, in some sort of briefing, that he flips from being a sort of deregulation on AI kind of person to kind of getting all the CEOs together and saying, guys, we have to work together on this. And I'm assuming that's where the executive order on, soft regulation of AI came from. But yeah, so that's like the number of elements that showed up that I think most people are not cognizant of, as we were talking about, like, oh, is Mythos 5, Fable 5, or whatever, or for example, right? If you see the story as it's being discussed, people are like, well, why is Scott Bessent, who is from Treasury, involved with regulating AI? This makes no sense, right?
That one did throw me for a little bit of a loop the other day, going like, huh?
Right, but if I tell you that no, he got pulled in because financial infrastructure is at risk because they're all going to get fucking hacked, including the banks. And he pulled together a meeting of all the bank CEOs to figure out what they're going to do about it. Suddenly, yes, of course, it all falls in place. It's totally normal that he's involved in these conversations because the whole thing is going down. Yeah. So there's it's fascinating to me. Yeah. Because like we are having one conversation, but inside the government, they're having a completely different conversation. And there's like little hooks being released to the public. Like, there was a jailbreak. And you're like, okay, so what, you don't want us to have the capabilities and whatever? On their side, they're like, no, this is a cyber weapon. Okay. The only way that Anthropic can put it out there is if they are, they can prove that they're not going to make this capability available to our adversaries. So it doesn't matter that a jailbreak cannot be defended against. What that means to somebody like Bessent is that if you can't put the genie back in the box, you don't release the genie, right? Like if there's no way to defend it, it sucks for you. We're going to keep your $10 billion training run model for ourselves until you can tell me that it's not going to be used to help our adversaries in any way. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I don't know. It helped a lot of things fall together.
Some of that is clarifying. Some of it is still in line with what we sort of knew what was going on. I guess the biggest reveal is that the prior discussions of them trying to say that it was a supply chain risk and kick them out from government use was a little bit misunderstood, because if they're still using it internally to some capacity, Anthropic at all, that means that Anthropic is not involved in having a say, except for the people that you said is on the inside. So it's a little confusing at that angle, where the status of supply chain risk actually lands from the previous declarations.
Especially because the NSA is part of the Pentagon technically, right? But they had been exempted from the supply chain risk designation, which, okay, at that point, what are we?
Yeah. That aspect could use some clarity. What do you think? What do you think this is doing as far as a precedent, and where do you think we're heading in the next couple months? Because I don't think, to my knowledge, that Anthropic did anything groundbreaking with Mythos except through a training approach, which any other large-scale company is probably going to have in similar scale to their next models. Meaning, like the curve on the advancement based off of just using more compute, right? The S curve, as it typically is not currently in an S form. Meaning we're still getting gains just by throwing more compute, right? That's the general consensus. We're just really throwing more and more compute, which all of the competitors are going to be able to do. It wasn't that they invented a specifically brand new technique that made it have a breakthrough, that made it have the capabilities. So what are we going to do when OpenAI has their next model, which is just doing the same thing that Mythos has?
Or the other fear that everybody's bringing up now is what do we do in China in 3 months down the line, or 6 months down the line, or whatever, right? Brings out their Mythos class model that they open source and give it to everyone. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Yes. Basically, what I'm saying is that various government agencies are flailing about, right? Like you are seeing an unstoppable force of AI progress hitting an immovable object, which is the government, right? Like and I think everybody is regressing to their basic instincts, animal spirits, sort of, hypothalamus, whatever, right? Like just lizard brain type stuff, like ban it, supply chain risk, control it, stop it, expert control, like whatever. Basically, just I think you're going to see a lot of random flailing about, because ultimately, what can they do? Like, I mean, think about it. Like, you're a government, right? The most powerful government in the history of the world, whatever. Okay, cool. This thing is happening, right? Which is exposing, like, your naked ass to the world, right? Like, all your critical systems are exposed. Great. You can stop the first guy with a capability from making it too available, I guess, and maybe like try to get a few hacks of your own in there. but it's only a matter of time. And I mean, like, what can the government do in like 3 months, 6 months?
Well, you said that they don't want to let the genie out of the bottle, so they're preventing the selling of the bottle. But I think perhaps we could borrow some wisdom from Christina Aguilera and just say that you have to, it's a genie in the bottle. You just got to rub it the right way. And
that's right, President Tom Alpern. Just give them the keys of the kingdom and hope they do better.
Yeah, I just don't see. I mean, look, there's only so many companies right now that have the pipeline to be able to do the large scale training. But, the fact that at the moment, like I said, what they call the S curve, the diminishing returns curve is not at the S part, meaning that we still have large gains being made from just throwing more and more resources at the training set. It means that someone else is going to get to the same place that Anthropic was. They just happen to be on this current iteration, and OpenAI's next iteration could be exactly where Mythos was, or quote better.
Yeah. So. Well, the last rumor I've seen, which I retweeted, is that apparently OpenAI has already got their next iteration of Mythos that is even more powerful right now internally, and of course this is not subject to any expert control.
You mean Anthropic does? Anthropic does. Yeah. Okay. I hear your kids in the background. It's Father's Day, so I'm going to try to let you go here, Alex. Unless you have anything else on the topic to discuss, I'm going to move on to one last thing, very short, which was my favorite thing this week from the AI segment. Okay. This was an article, Alex, posted to Archive. This was a journal article titled, "If LLMs have human-like attributes, then so does Age of Empires 2. I'm going to just only read some choice excerpts from this because this was my favorite thing of the week. "Our primary aim is to encourage discourse on the correctness of assumptions and results related to LLM anthropomorphism, especially when the premises, experimental outcomes supporting these conclusions are derived from assumptions of the existence or non-existence of such attributes. We also provide potential objections to our responses to our work in Section 5, a small meta-review of the field with regards to anthropomorphism in Appendix E, and proofs that a theoretical version of Age of Empires 2 is functionally and Turing complete." Another blurb here. "In this section, we show it is possible to train a neural network in Age of Empires 2. We begin by introducing the network's building blocks and its mathematical foundations. Finally, we describe the architecture and results. Further details in Appendix D." Now, this is the best part, Alex. This is the best part, and this will end the show here. Figure 1 is a NAND gate in Age of Empire 2's editor, designed to show its internal workings. Simpler implementations are possible. Every bit is represented by 2 rails, grass for 0 and a bridge for 1. Only one rail is active at a time, with a goat acting as a signal carrier. When the gate fires, the bit goats are removed and a new bit goat is placed in its respective output rail. To avoid race conditions, gate-ready rails, ICE, are set with signal goats in the rail closest to the gate, indicating that it can start the calculation. So in Age of Empires 2, they're using goats to run back and forth and be a signal propagation for their logic network so that they can train an LLM to prove that if an LLM in Age of Empires 2 could be anthropomorphized, then you can anthropomorphize anything.
I don't know, man. That sounds a bit out there. It's like it's the absurdist version of the Chinese room argument or something.
Bit goats, Alex.
Bit goats. That's a good name.
So that's my favorite thing of the week, Alex. And happy Father's Day. I hope you have a wonderful dinner evening, whatever you're planning to do with the rest. Spend it.
I took the boys out for brunch. That was my Father's Day.
All right. Well, I'll free you up to have a wonderful evening as well. Alex, we have plenty on the AI dystopia cutting room floor that we can get into next week. But I hope you have a wonderful evening. Everyone else, too. And I hope you also enjoyed your Juneteenth, if you celebrated it. I was at a car dealership getting it.
As a reasonably recent reasonably recent immigrant to America. I have avoided learning about this, and I plan to continue to avoid learning about it.
All right.
As long as I can pull it off.
Happy Father's Day. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. I'll see you next week, buddy.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.